The lead developer of the game White Love Song, Ian, passionately kisses Lola, the production management manager. Kelly silently stands nearby and watches what is happening with contempt. An idea comes to the girl's head. She takes out her phone and starts taking pictures. At that moment, her lovers notice her. Kelly, one of the investors, says with a chuckle that she seems to have forgotten to turn off the flash. As she leaves, the girl says that with the help of these photographs, she can rid the company of young people. Ian rushes after Kelly and declares that he loves her, begging her to give him one last chance. Kelly, with tears in her eyes, replies that the guy deceived her, and there is no question of any last chance, and she really hopes that the couple will lose their jobs. Lola is desperate and thinks that if she loses her job, her financial well-being will collapse. The girl runs after Kelly and, having caught up, pushes her with all her might, screaming that she must die. Kelly, who did not expect the attack, flies straight into the table, next to which there are damaged wires. The girl catches the extension cord with her heel and falls head first onto the exposed wire. Ian is horrified, and Lola says with a grin that if Kelly dies, then no one will know anything. The girl opens her eyes, grabs her head, which is bursting with pain, and tries to understand what happened to her. Suddenly, the girl is very clearly hugged by a young man. She tries to push him away and asks in amazement who he is. The man looks tenderly at the girl and asks if his dear Catherine really doesn't want to play with him anymore. Kelly looks in amazement at the familiar interior, the man's surprisingly familiar face, and the name he calls her. Suddenly, the girl realizes that, obviously, she has become the main villain of her own game, Catherine. Kelly works for a game company, but she was betrayed by her lover and is now in her own game, White Song of Love. According to the plot, Catherine seduced the king and killed the queen, but Princess Eve, with the help of Lucifer and Samuel, will definitely take revenge on the villainess. Kelly realizes that everything that is happening is simply ridiculous, and she must find a way to get out of the game. The girl frantically thinks that she can kill a couple of characters and see what happens, because in any case, in the finale, Catherine must die. The king says that the girl has nothing to worry about. As soon as the queen is finished, they can always be together. Kelly remembers that in this storyline, Princess Eva is supposed to catch her aunt and father right now. The girl turns away from the man and states that they shouldn't continue because Princess Eva might find them. At this moment, the doors to the chambers swing open and a young princess runs into the room. The girl looks in horror at the opening scene and furiously asks how her aunt and father can do this. The king coldly notices that his daughter has completely forgotten about etiquette and asks why she dared to come in without knocking. Catherine takes the man by the hand and notices that there is no point in hiding, and in fact, she and the king love each other. Eva presses her hands to her face and asks if her aunt loves her more than anyone. The princess looks at her aunt and asks with tears in her eyes how she could do this to her mother and her sister. Catherine mockingly asks in response whether sisters can't do the same thing. Enraged, Eva rushes at Catherine, intending to knock her down. The king covers the woman and tells his daughter not to forget that her mother went to prison because she attempted to assassinate him. Eva shouts that this is simply impossible. Mother was framed, and father should not listen to the villain. The king becomes furious and orders his daughter to shut up. Her mother is in prison, stripped of her title, and she is no longer queen. The man declares that he will marry Catherine and make her queen, and the girl should get used to this. In tears, the princess declares that this will never happen. There is only one queen, and that is her mother. Catherine listens to the quarrel and thinks that she doesn't want to become queen at all. It's a shame they didn't ask her about it. The heroine calms the king, notes that he should not shout at his daughter. They should talk in private. Catherine takes her leave, terrified of what she has done and realizing that she needs to hurry. The girl remembers that in the original story, Catherine dies tragically at the hands of Lucifer. The heroine resolutely clenches her hand into a fist and thinks about summoning the demon in advance. While performing the ritual, Catherine remembers that in the game, the princess accidentally wakes up Lucifer by dropping a candle. The flame burns the magic circle, and the true devil Lucifer appears before the woman. The demon looks at Catherine and declares that since she woke him up, he will fulfill her wish. The girl screams joyfully. Since the devil has appeared, it means she is doing everything right. Without fear, Catherine approaches Lucifer and without wasting time tells him to kill her quickly. The girl is sure that she can only get out of the game by going through the storyline, so she asks the perplexed Lucifer to use his dark power and kill her. The devil squeezes Catherine's throat and furiously asks who she is and how she learned about his power. Catherine thinks with pity that she cannot tell the demon that the game was made according to her model, which is why she is aware of all the events. The girl declares that Lucifer himself knows that he must do this. The man raises his hand and summons the devil's fire. Catherine watches the devil with satisfaction. The faster he kills her, the faster she can return to reality. Suddenly, the girl remembers that there is a bug in the game, and if the order of Catherine's death is not followed, then she will return to the original place, her boudoir. A moment later, Catherine finds herself in her room, and with bewilderment realizes that she is sitting on a demon, who for some reason ended up with her. The devil looks at the girl in surprise and asks how she knows him and why she sat on him. Catherine ponders with bewilderment that the demon is truly handsome, worthy of a royal place. Suddenly, Lucifer explodes and declares that the girl must get off him immediately, and no one has the right to talk to him in such a tone. Ekaterina is thinking about the fact that she shouldn't show her knowledge to the characters in the game. Lucifer says that since the girl called him, he will fulfill her wish. Turning around, Catherine realizes that, having returned to her boudoir, the demon forgot about what happened in the church. Suddenly, the girl receives a system notification that if her player does not find the right way to die, he will not be able to leave here. Catherine thinks that most likely she will die at the hands of Lucifer on her wedding day, which means she needs to lead the princess to the secret room. The girl decides that Lucifer needs to be brought back, grabs the man by the hand, and tells him to go back. The demon intercepts the hand and notices that Catherine is very brave if she wants him to return back to the cage. The girl knows how to make the devil obedient and asks if he wants to get rid of the oppression of dark forces. Lucifer is surprised, and the girl declares that she can break the seal and free him from the curse. One day, the father rebelled against the man and sealed him in darkness forever. To return, Lucifer absorbed many souls, which turned him into a demon. On the way to church, Catherine remembers that in order to defeat her aunt, Eve entered into an agreement with Lucifer. The princess watching Catherine hears her say that the demon manipulated her, made her his slave, but was never able to get her soul. Suddenly, the girl remembers the ring and hastily takes it off her finger. Ava sees the ring and remembers that this is the only thing that connected her bright mother with Catherine. The demon looks at the ring in surprise, and the girl assures that this particular thing will help free him. Lucifer pins the girl against the wall and says that he can follow her, but wants to know what the girl's true goal is. Realizing that if she tells the truth, the game will break again, Catherine declares that she wants to rule the kingdom. Ava grinds her teeth with rage. It turns out that she was right about everything. Unable to bear it, the princess runs out and shouts that her aunt not only framed her sister, but also wants to take the throne, and she will tell everything to her father. Catherine is surprised that Eve is here. If she finds out about the devil, she will not sign a contract with him. The girl turns to the princess and declares that the king trusts her completely and will not send her to execution. Trying to anger Eva more, the uncle declares that the girl is just a dummy and can only wander aimlessly around the castle. Catherine looks arrogantly at the princess, trying to anger her even more. Eva is amazed at her aunt's impudence, swings a candlestick at her, and shouts that she will kill her. Catherine thinks with satisfaction that she will finally be able to return home. But suddenly, Lucifer closes the girl and tells Eve that if she dares to touch her, he will kill her. The man raises his hand, and dark magic begins to flow through his fingers. Taking the form of a snake, the demonic force wraps itself around the princess's neck and begins to choke her. Catherine realizes that if Eve dies, she will never get out of the game and orders the demon to stop immediately. The snake disappears. The girl falls to the floor, but suddenly everything around her lights up with a bright light. Lucifer looks at Eve in amazement and does not understand where the power of the Holy Father comes from in her. Many years ago, the Holy Father told the boy that as long as his heart and mind preached the truth, he would always be welcome in the kingdom of God. The boy trustingly confesses to the Holy Father that he respects God, but wants to study science. The Holy Father assures that all village residents can engage in science and asks the boy to show him those who are thinking about it. The boy declares that the Holy Father is very kind and he will gladly fulfill his request. After a while, a whole army led by the Holy Father came to the village. The man with contempt gives the order to kill all the pagans who betrayed the light. A boy hides behind a haystack, watching in horror as the inhabitants of his village are dealt with. Lucifer sees a trail of light and realizes with rage that it all has something to do with his old enemy. The demon rushes at Eve and shouts that the princess is on the side of the Holy Father and bows before him. Realizing that Catherine's entire plan is crumbling, the girl rushes at Lucifer and demands to release the princess. The man turns around sharply and declares that he is the devil himself, and no person can interfere in his affairs. Catherine calmly notes that Eve is needed to remove the seal, and if the demon kills her, he will be swallowed up by darkness forever. Eve screams in horror that her aunt has conspired with dark forces to kill her. The princess jumps to her feet, runs and shouts that she will tell her father everything. Ekaterina angrily thinks that now Eva will never sign the contract, and it is useless to try to fix anything. The girl remembers that Lucifer had the skill of teleportation and demands to immediately return her to her chambers. A couple of moments later, the devil lands in the room with Catherine in his arms. Suddenly, the man stumbles. The girl falls on the bed, and he falls on top of her. Embarrassed, the devil sits down abruptly and says that it is not his fault. Catherine is simply too heavy. Suddenly, there's a knock on the door, and a voice from behind the door reports that the father has come to see the lady. The father, who is also the Duke of Bella, comes into the room and wonders what Catherine is doing. The girl slams the closet door forcefully and says that she is cleaning up the mess. The Duke advises that this work be left to the servants, because the girl has more important things to do. Catherine looks with amazement at the iris flower in the man's hands. This flower symbolizes the status of the queen and is a sign of identity. The Duke reasons that the queen is in prison and the king's marital status is now in question. But today the man understood everything. Looking intently at the girl, the father says that the king loves her no less than his sister. The Duke hands the flower to Catherine and declares that her time has come to serve the family. The man invites the girl to stand next to the king and take the place of her sister, and the girl realizes how cunning he is. Eva tells her father about the incident and says that collusion with dark forces is a criminal offense. The father looks at his daughter doubtfully and asks if she is sure that Catherine seduced someone. Turning to the guards, the king orders to go to the church and immediately bring Madame Catherine. The man orders the other knights to send a group of people to Duke Belle's house to check if Catherine is there. Annoyed, the princess thinks that her father trusts her aunt more than his own daughter. The returning knight reports that Lady Catherine has been found in her chambers in the house of Duke Belle. Eva immediately turns to her father and assures him that she is not deceiving him. Catherine and the Duke respectfully bow and greet His Highness. The girl states that she heard that she was accused of conspiring with dark forces, but all this time she was in her father's house. Eva shouts that her aunt is lying. Yesterday, she saw a girl with a man in a dark cloak, and they wanted to kill her. The Duke asks the princess not to make false statements, since it is at least an hour's drive from the church to the residence. Eva says with tears that most likely that man, with the help of dark magic, helped Catherine return to her home so quickly. Catherine also begins to cry and asks the king whether the princess is not entitled to punishment for slander. The father turns to his daughter and states that Catherine has witnesses that she was at home, so the matter is over. Suddenly, Eve hands her father a ring and says that she found it in the church and needs to ask the Holy Father to check it for dark magic. Catherine realizes with annoyance that in all the fuss, she completely forgot about the ring. The king calls the Holy Father and asks him to check the princess's guess. The Overlord says that the trace of light that the priest possesses can detect the trace of dark magic. The Holy Father bows and replies that the king is right. His power is capable of sensing a small part of dark magic. Catherine watches the priest take the ring and realizes that if he is on the side of the princess, then now he will reveal it. Eva looks at her aunt with hatred and thinks that if the Holy Father confirms the presence of dark forces, then she will no longer be able to escape. The princess hopes that her mother's suffering will return to the villain, and she will pay for everything she has done. The Holy Father declares that he has studied the ring and can say with confidence that it does not contain any dark forces. Ava screams in horror. She doesn't understand how this is possible because she saw everything with her own eyes. The princess attacks Catherine, accusing her of somehow enchanting the ring. The girl understands that Lucifer disobeyed her and did not fill the ring with dark power. In future, she must be more careful with him. With an innocent look, Catherine declares that she was in her chambers and has no idea what Ava is accusing her of. Suddenly, the girl asks what the princess herself was doing so late in the church. The confused princess mutters that she was looking for one thing in the church that she lost there in the morning. The girl wonders what kind of thing it is that the princess personally went to look for it. Suddenly, the king slams his fist on the chair and orders Eve to immediately tell her what she did in the church. The girl admits that she wanted to find evidence that her mother did not resort to the help of dark forces. The king, furious, orders to stop justifying the woman who attempted on his life. The king stands up and declares that he is disappointed, and from that day on, the princess is forbidden to leave her chambers. Catherine looks at Eve and feels pity. Even though they are enemies, she is not to blame for anything, and perhaps she should be helped. The girl turns her face distorted with anger to her aunt and declares that she will make her pay for everything. The girl receives a message from the system that they have found a new branch leading to death. The main character's bitterness is 5%. The maid sets the table in the chambers of the punished princess and wishes her bon appetit. Angry, Eva knocks over the plates and shouts that just because she was locked out does not give the maid the right to mock her. The second and third princesses enter the chambers and look at their sister reproachfully. The second princess says with a grin that she was worried about her sister, so she ordered a special dinner to be prepared for her. The third princess sarcastically remarks that Ava has done something wrong to the king, and now everyone is running away from her like scalded people. Ava screams in rage that she will not allow her sisters to mock her. As soon as her mother is acquitted, she will again become the king's favorite daughter. The second princess says that her sister is just a fool if she expects her mother to be released from prison. Eva rushes at her sister and declares that she should have her tongue torn out for such words. The third sister, taking advantage of the fact that Eva was distracted, pushes her with all her might and the girl falls to the floor. The second princess steps on the girl's hand with her heel and says that she should not forget the situation she is in now. Suddenly, Catherine enters the room and coldly asks what is going on here. The girls rush towards the villainess, and the second princess reports that they have decided to teach stupid Eva a lesson. Catherine looks at the girls in amazement and does not understand who they are. Judging by their clothes and character, they are unimportant characters. Angry Eva points her finger at her aunt and shouts that all the problems are because of her. The princess accuses Catherine of being locked up because of her, and she hopes that sooner or later she will be able to kill her. The girl stumbles and begins to fall, but at that moment a young man flies up with lightning speed and picks up Eve. The young man turns to Catherine and angrily orders not to touch the princess. Without waiting for an answer, the knight asks the lady to be merciful and leave Princess Eva alone. Catherine realizes with annoyance that in front of her is one of the main characters, Sir Alice, the princess's faithful knight. The girl asks in amazement why she should leave Eve alone and what exactly she did wrong just now. Alice angrily reports that he saw with his own eyes how Catherine pushed the princess. The girl notices that it was Eve who was about to attack her, but tripped over her dress. The knight quietly asks the princess if this is true, to which the girl nods in the affirmative. Eva says that her aunt seduced her father, locked her here, but that's not enough for her. Now she sent her sisters to kill her. The princess tells Alice that Catherine has entered into a conspiracy with a follower of dark forces and begs the knight to help her. The young man draws his sword and declares that Catherine not only raised her hand against the princess, but also betrayed God, and now he is obliged to deal with her. Suddenly, a portal opens and Lucifer appears in the room, shouting that no one dares touch his woman. The demon touches the sword, which immediately turns to dust, and notices that the guy does not know how to handle weapons at all. The devil grabs Alice by the neck and threateningly says that he does not dare touch Catherine. The knight jumps aside and in fear asks who this is and why he used dark powers. The devil proudly announces that he will not hide his name and says that he is the demon Lucifer. The young man says in horror that the princess was right in everything, and Catherine is really a villain. Alice rushes with a sword at Lucifer, but he easily stops the weapon with his hand. The stunned young man falls to the floor and says that he will report everything to the Holy Father. Lucifer attacks the knight and shouts that if the guy is a disciple of the Holy Father, then he will not live. Catherine tries to stop Lucifer, thinking that now the main characters will simply kill each other. Lucifer asks the girl to name at least one reason why he should not kill the knight. But he replies that in this way, he will not be able to gain the trust of the princess. Catherine whispers in Lucifer's ear that without the princess's help, he will not be able to break the seal. The devil agrees with the girl, but advises her not to deceive him. Lucifer begins to cast a spell to erase the memories of everyone who saw him. The Holy Father enters the room and asks in amazement what is happening here. Alice is lying on the floor. Ekaterina is lying on him. The others are also unconscious. The girl sits down, puts her hand to her head, and says that someone attacked them with magic. The Holy Father wonders whether Lucifer could be the attacker, but he is securely locked, just in case the man decides to check the room and the seal. Eva comes to her senses, says that she has a headache, and asks what happened to them. The princess notices the Holy Father and asks hopefully if there is any news about her mother. Sighing, the man says that the king was merciful and allowed a meeting with one person. Eva joyfully says that she really wants to see her mother, but the Holy Father said that the queen did not demand her. Turning to Catherine, the priest invites her to follow him. The Holy Father says that the queen is outside the door. The girl thanks him for seeing her off. Following the priest, Catherine does not understand why her sister suddenly wanted to see her. Noticing Lucifer, the girl convincingly says that he should hide, especially when the Holy Father is nearby. Catherine assures the demon that now is not the time to show her strength. The girl reminds that the devil's seal has not yet been removed. It has only weakened. Lucifer hides in the girl's hair, but she says that it is not enough to simply shrink. You need to completely hide the dark forces. The devil grumbles with displeasure, but understands that the girl is right. It is not yet time to confront the Holy Father. The queen diligently writes something and, without raising it, states the fact that her sister has come. Catherine reflects that two sisters are fighting for one man, and she, as an observer, is downright awkward to be here. Ekaterina decisively approaches her sister and asks why she called her. The sister declares that she failed to cope with the role of queen, and now Catherine must become a worthy replacement on the throne. The girl asks whether her sister will believe it if she says that neither the king nor the throne interests her. The queen admits that from the very beginning, she was sure that Catherine was forced to get closer to the king by her father. The woman says that the father has long decided to gain power, and the daughters are just tools in his hands. The queen looks out the window and reasons that being hostages of a political game is the same as being in a dungeon, and nothing depends on them. Ekaterina asks in bewilderment why this is so, because she can tell everyone that she is not interested in this. The sister asks with a grin whether Catherine really thinks that the king was interested in her only because she is the second Rothschild. The girl looks at her sister in amazement. She didn't start developing the game from the very beginning, so is there really some kind of secret connected with the heroine? The queen reveals that Catherine is the one who has the power to influence the political power in the hands of the king. The plot mentioned that in the kingdom, they believe in the god of light, and those who inherit his power are called saints, and it turns out that Catherine is a holy virgin. Tension has been growing between the king and the Holy Father for a long time. For many years, they have been trying to overthrow each other from their positions. The girl walks down the corridor and thinks that if she is a holy virgin, then this becomes a huge problem. The Holy Father calls out to the girl. He notices that the Duke's residence is quite far away and says that he will escort her. Catherine turns and asks the priest if he really doesn't want to rescue the queen from prison. The Holy Father replies that the girl must be joking because saving the queen has nothing to do with him. Catherine continues to insist and asks if the priest really wanted to save his sister, would he find a way or not? The Holy Father leans towards the girl's ear and asks if the queen told her something about him. The girl jumps back in fright and assures that the queen only asked to take care of Eve. Catherine explains her persistent interest by the fact that the priest always treated the princess with warmth. The Holy Father assures that he has no way to save the queen and says that it is time for him to return to the church. Looking at the priest's back, Catherine realizes that there was little chance, but at least she tried. Suddenly, the girl is pressed against the wall by Lucifer and threateningly asks what connects her with the Holy Father. The man furiously asks if she is also a priest's student. In the square, the herald reads that Julia Rothschild has entered into a conspiracy with dark forces, will be stripped of her title and status, and will be beheaded. Eva, in desperation, tries to break through to her mother, shouting that she is not to blame for anything. The princess is crying, lying on the ground, and insists that Catherine is to blame for everything. It was she who killed her mother. Rising, Eva vows that she will take revenge, and Catherine will pay for everything. The Holy Father asks with surprise what the princess is doing in the church at such a late hour. The princess states that the priest always treated her with great warmth, so she asks him to kill Catherine. The girl tries to convince Lucifer that nothing ever happened between her and the Holy Father. The demon declares that he does not believe the girl because everyone constantly lies and forgets about their vows. The man declares that he will believe only if Catherine entrusts her heart to him and becomes his follower. Leaning towards the girl's neck, Lucifer says that if she betrays him, he will eat her. The devil looks closely at Catherine and notices that she is not afraid of him, but for some reason her face is red. Catherine convinces the man that they are in the same boat and there is no reason to betray him. Suddenly, a loud ringing sound is heard, and the couple notices that a huge glass has been broken. A mercenary jumps into the room, but Lucifer instantly covers the girl. The Dark Knight makes a deft leap, and shouting that she must die, rushes at Catherine with a weapon in his hand. Suddenly, the mercenary stops abruptly and looks in amazement at the sacred light emanating from the girl. Lucifer does not have time to react, but the knight has already jumped out the window and escaped. Catherine assures that everything is fine with her, but she herself wonders who else, besides the princess, she could cross the road with. The Holy Father listens with surprise to the knight's story that a sacred light emanated from Catherine. The knight embarrassedly says that the light emanating from the girl was even brighter than the light of the Holy Father. The priest ponders the knight's words. The power of God is rare. Thanks to it, he was able to take the position of Holy Father. The man thinks that in their world, there cannot be those who own the true sacred light. This is only possible if the girl is a holy virgin. Knight Alice informs the Duke that, by order of the king, he entered into the disposal of Lady Catherine and brought 20 jewelry boxes as an engagement gift. The Duke tells the knight that as long as his daughter is under his protection, he can be calm. Catherine runs out of the house and shouts that she will not accept the gifts, and especially the knight Alice. The girl knows that the knight is loyal to the princess, and she will be a complete fool if she allows him to defend herself. The father angrily declares that his daughter is being disrespectful. She should be eternally grateful for such generous gifts. The Duke approaches Catherine and angrily says that she must remember her destiny and does not dare disobey him. Turning to Alice, the man says that the Rothschild family has no claims against the king, and the daughter is simply capricious. Alice kneels before Catherine and pronounces the words of an oath, swearing allegiance to her. The young man kisses the girl's hand and says that he expresses a desire to become a faithful knight for her. Catherine leans over to the guy and asks why he agreed to this if he is devoted to the princess with all his heart. Alice bows his head and explains that he is the king's knight and does as his lord commands. The girl sarcastically notes that the knight is very obedient and expresses the hope that this will continue to be the case. Catherine walks along the corridor and reflects that she is already fed up with this world, in which she is left with no choice in anything. A maid comes out to the girl and tells her that the main follower of the Holy Father is waiting for her. Catherine wonders in surprise why the main follower suddenly wanted to meet with her. The young man reports that the Holy Father invites the lady to study in the church and gives her a gift as an invitation. Alice overhears the conversation and realizes that Eve was right. This evil and vain woman is playing some obscure game with the Holy Father. The Duchess answers the young man that the status of a student is too honorable for such a simple girl, and she cannot accept this gift. The knight is surprised by the girl's words, but comes to the conclusion that she is just pretending. The follower explains in surprise that the girl has a rare opportunity. Can she really just refuse it? Realizing that Catherine is firm in her decision, the young man leaves, leaving the final comment that the girl may still regret her decision. The maid present during the conversation says that becoming a disciple of the church means receiving her recognition and asks how the Duchess could refuse such an opportunity. Catherine replies that she wants to live her life calmly, and there is no need for her to agree to something that presupposes some kind of plan and gives rise to attacks. Alice realizes with surprise that he did not expect such words from the girl. This does not at all look like villainy. The maid sincerely admires her mistress's intelligence. Such conclusions never even occurred to her. Ekaterina looks at the naive girl and thinks that if she wants to honestly reach the final, then she cannot use cunning. The Duchess says that if the maid wants to serve her, she will have to learn a lot. The girl happily replies that she will try her best. Catherine thinks that in this game she has too few people to rely on. The girl leaves with the thought that if the game continues like this, the fictional world will soon collapse, and she needs to return to her reality as soon as possible. Approaching the royal hall, Catherine decides that she needs to speed up the plot in order to hasten the death of her heroine. As far as the girl remembers, further in the plot there should be a big hunt in which Catherine will raise her hand against the princess. In the same story, Prince Samuel from a neighboring kingdom will have to stand up for Eve. As the Duchess approaches the king, she sees Eve and wonders what the hell she's doing here. The ruler joyfully greets the bride and asks if she was satisfied with his gifts. The girl bows her head and states that she has a small request to the king. She asks to organize a hunt. The man declares that this is just a wonderful idea, and it must happen that the princess asked him for the same thing. The Duchess looks at Eva in surprise. This girl is clearly up to something. The princess says with a grin that, according to rumors, her aunt is an excellent archer on horseback, and she hopes to learn the skill. After a short time, the preparations were completed, and all the nobles of the kingdom gathered for the big hunt. The second and third princesses do not leave Catherine a single step, showering her with flattering compliments. Elsa angrily remarks that the princess's mother recently passed away, and they are already fawning over Catherine. The girl resolutely declares that she will take it out on them instead of Eva, but the princess tries to restrain her friend. The girls discuss that this year the main trophy will be a porcelain medal. Elsa approaches with a laugh and says that for the queen's sake the ruler once built an entire city, but for Catherine's sake he allocated only a porcelain medal. The Duchess remembers that before her is Eva's best friend, who, due to the king's favor, became proud and impudent. The Duchess states that Princess Eva was also the initiator of the hunt, and does Elsa want to say that the king treats his daughter with disdain? Elzia reflects with surprise that before Ekaterina was never distinguished by her intelligence. Since when, I wonder, did she learn to answer like that? The girl attacks the Duchess, accusing her of killing her sister, to which Catherine demands to provide evidence. Staring intently at Elsa, the Duchess threateningly declares that false rumors should not be spread. The girl continues that since the topic has touched Eva, she will give her interlocutor advice not to repeat what everyone around is saying. Otherwise, you can quickly become a tool in someone else's hands. Eva intervenes in the conversation and says that Elsa is simply looking for justice and begs her aunt to have mercy on her. The princess drags her friend aside, but she resists and says that she is not to blame for anything. Suddenly, the girl returns and invites Catherine to compete in horse riding to find out which of them is better. The girl knows that the Duchess used to ride poorly and hopes that today she will disgrace herself in front of everyone. Elsa declares that she will cancel the challenge if her aunt apologizes to Eva on her knees, but Ekaterina calmly accepts the challenge. The girl looks at her interlocutor in confusion. She never expected her to agree. Lucifer asks why the girl agreed. The trophy doesn't look too worthwhile. Catherine replies that the enemy has raised his flag, and if she refuses, then everyone will think that she was scared. The devil presses against the girl, grabbing her hand and declares that you don't have to strain yourself, but just kill your rival. Catherine categorically states that it is impossible, thinking that Elsa is an important figure in the line that leads to the death of the heroine. The Duchess assures the demon that he has recently regained his strength and he should not reveal himself, and murder will only bring unnecessary problems. The man looks soulfully into the girl's eyes and asks if she doesn't believe in his strength. Ekaterina calmly notes that it's more likely that the demon doesn't believe in himself, and, in general, why did he think that she would lose? Lucifer leans towards the girl's face and whispers that in this case, Catherine must live up to his expectations. The competitors receive the command to get ready and drive out onto the road along which the race will take place. Lucifer notices that the girl's horse is not acting calmly and asks if she can definitely manage without his help. The Duchess excitedly replies that she likes to challenge herself. The signal sounds and the race begins. Observing that Ekaterina easily takes the lead, Elsa decides that she will not let her opponent win so easily. Elsa knows that to win, the horse must be calm and should not be allowed to be disturbed by anything. So having caught up with her rival, she plunges the dagger straight into her horse. The animal neighs loudly in pain and rears up. Ekaterina, not understanding what is happening, has difficulty staying in the saddle. Lucifer sees that the girl is in danger and in the blink of an eye moves through the portal to the scene of events. The magic rod, hidden behind the back of the Holy Father, is sensitive to the presence of dark magic. The Duchess shouts to Lucifer not to interfere. If he alarms the horse, then she will completely lose control over him. Ekaterina manages to pacify the animal, and in front of the amazed eyes of Elsa, she quickly rushes to the finish line. Lucifer watches the girl with pride and thinks that she is the most amazing person he has ever seen. Elsa admits her defeat and threateningly says that she is not afraid of Catherine, and if she dares to offend Eva again, she will not show herself too much. Looking at the girl leaving, the Duchess imperiously says that she did not give her permission to leave. Catherine declares that Elsa injured her horse, so they are not on the same page. She is not a kind aunt at all. When Elsa asks what else the Duchess wants, the girl replies that she is challenging Eva in horse riding. According to the plot, during the race, Catherine prevented Eva from winning. An angry horse rushed the princess into the forest. In the forest, Eve must be saved by a prince from a neighboring kingdom, who will fall in love with the princess at first sight and for the rest of his life. Looking in the mirror, Catherine reflects that death at the hands of the prince is also one of the possible endings. We need to speed up the plot as soon as possible. Lucifer appears on the threshold with a gorgeous bouquet of roses and congratulates the girl on her victory. The demon reproachfully says that the next time Catherine is in danger, she should not try her best. The devil assures that he has enough strength to save the girl, and Catherine is surprised to notice that her heart begins to beat like crazy. As she leaves, the Duchess says that Lucifer needs to save his strength because he is her main trump card. The man comes too close again and asks if the girl is really worried about him. The demon leans towards the girl's face and declares that he needs to confess something. Alice is wandering through the forest when the princess calls out to him from the bushes. The girl looks at the young man and asks who he is most loyal to. Without hesitation, the knight gets down on one knee and admits that he is loyal only to his mistress Eve. The princess hands Alice the bottle and says that she needs to make the Duchess's horse go berserk. The knight does not like this idea at all, but he obeys the girl's order and assures that he will do everything that is necessary. At the same time, Lucifer admits to Catherine that he really likes her. The demon invites the girl to forget her past life. If she is with him, then the devil will always be able to protect her. Catherine looks into the eyes of the devil. She feels bewitched. Her heart is still beating strongly. After being transferred to the game, the girl always seems to be walking on thin ice. There are enemies all around, and she cannot relax. When Catherine returns to her world, she still has to deal with the cheater and divide the rights to the game and property. Lucifer in the game was always next to the heroine and constantly protected her. The girl closes her eyes, trying to get everything out of her head, because this is just a game, not real life. Looking at the demon, the heroine thinks that the world in the game depends on the real world, and if something goes wrong in it, then the game will collapse, and then she will no longer be able to get out. The girl resolutely pushes Lucifer away and declares that he cannot like a villain like her. The man looks at his interlocutor in confusion and says that he really likes her. Catherine confidently declares that the devil just wants, with her help, to completely get rid of the oppression of dark forces. Lucifer grabs the girl in a rage and asks if she really wants to marry the king and become the one everyone despises. Catherine nods affirmatively. The devil throws the flowers and quickly leaves, wanting to finally not regret his decision. The Duchess shouts after her that the demon must follow the princess and save her in case of danger. Lucifer remains silent, and the girl declares that without this he will not be able to fulfill his desire for liberation. The devil turns around and angrily replies that the girl need not worry. He will do everything that is necessary. Catherine sits on the floor and convinces herself that she did everything right. She must die at the hands of one of the main characters. But suddenly the girl realizes that she is in great pain and feels like her heart is broken. Alice brings the horse a bowl of water in which the potion given to him by Eve is dissolved. The knight realizes that an angry horse will easily throw off his rider and could trample him to death, and wonders if he is doing the right thing. Catherine enters the stable and asks Alice why he was staring at her horse. Hiding the bowl behind his back, the knight fearfully says that the mistress's horse was thirsty and he gave it water. The Duchess looks at the young man with suspicion. He is very devoted to the princess, so why did he suddenly decide to take care of her horse? Noticing the guy's fear, Catherine puts her hand on his cheek and asks why he was so excited. The young man abruptly removes his mistress's hand and speaks, and with embarrassment, asks her not to touch him so suddenly. The Duchess takes the knight by the chin and provocatively asks if only Eve has the right to do this. A flushed Alice wanders in front of the girl and says that he is not yet used to her, but following his oath, he will be forever devoted to her. Catherine asks if the knight can then swear that he did not do anything wrong with her horse. The guy looks away and swears. Eve stands behind the stable wall, overhears the conversation, and furiously comes to the conclusion that Alice has betrayed her. Suddenly, Catherine receives a message that the main character's anger has increased by 5% and is surprised. Looking at the knight, Catherine wonders whether the disagreement between him and Eve can lead her to the desired ending. The Holy Father reports that the winner of the competition will be the one who catches the largest amount of game in the allotted time. Suddenly, Ava interrupts the priest and says that she learned about the switching of horses. Alice tries to tell Eve that she has everything mixed up, but the princess pretends not to hear him. The princess approaches the Holy Father and asks him to help, because she just wants her horse back. Looking at Catherine, Eve thinks that since Alice betrayed her, that means she will have to involve the priest. The girl says that her horse has a special mark. At the very bottom of its mane, it has a white scar. The princess asks the priest to check for the scar and see for himself. The man is convinced of Eva's words and tells Catherine to exchange horses with her. The Duchess asks the Holy Father if he is going to listen to her too, because the truth is established by the testimony of both sides. The girl resolutely declares that all horses are alike, and some scar cannot serve as proof. Suddenly, it occurs to the heroine that she doesn't care about the outcome of the hunt. Even if Eva did something to the horse, she can just ride to the forest and get off it. Catherine looks at the position of the sun and realizes that soon Prince Samuel should appear at the place of their meeting with Eve. The Duchess reports that she has nothing to say and everything is clear, and she agrees to do as the Holy Father orders. The girls mount their horses and start galloping. The hunt is declared open. After a short time, the princess's horse suddenly rears up. Eva barely manages to jump off the horse. The animal is completely enraged and behaves aggressively. Lucifer hurries to the fallen princess, extends his hand to her, and asks if she is safe. Recognizing Catherine's acquaintance, Eva asks with fear whether the Duchess sent him to kill him. The man calmly replies that if he had not scared off the horse, the princess would have died anyway, and adds that he and Catherine no longer have anything in common. The devil says that if everything is okay with Eve, then he has nothing to do here and is about to leave. But the girl calls out to him. The princess stares at Lucifer and asks if she can turn to him if she needs help. The man turns around and expresses hope that this will not happen. Looking after the devil, Eve thinks that he is calm and handsome and did not behave as rudely as in their first meeting. Catherine wanders through the forest and thinks that if Lucifer did not fail, then he should have already met Eve, and then the plot will take its course. Suddenly, a loud crash is heard, and a huge, angry beast rushes from the bushes straight towards the girl. At this moment, the Duchess's horse bucks and runs away, depriving her of the chance to escape. Realizing that she has no other choice, the girl takes out her bow and decides to fight. The beast rushes at Catherine, and in one sharp movement, she shoots an arrow straight into his chest. The beast calmly pulls out an arrow from its thick fur, and the Duchess understands that she cannot defeat him with just a bow. Catherine is disappointed and thinks that, having learned about such a death, people will simply burst with laughter. Suddenly, someone rushes with a sword at the beast and, in defense, knocks the girl down. The young man looks at Catherine and wonders if everything is all right with the beautiful lady. The young man takes the Duchess by the hand and introduces himself as the prince from the Snowy Kingdom, Samuel Elva. The Duchess looks at the young man in bewilderment and realizes that she again accidentally stole the guy from the princess. The prince, without letting go of his hand, inquires about the name of the beautiful and brave girl. Catherine wonders with bewilderment how she can now go through the storyline where the prince saves the princess and falls in love with her. Suddenly, Lucifer appears right in front of the young people and asks in a scary voice what they are doing. The girl looks at the demon in fright, not understanding what he is doing here, and is finally convinced that everything is not going according to the script. Lucifer does not calm down and angrily asks what kind of man is kissing the Duchess's hands. Losing her temper, Catherine shouts that this is the etiquette, and it's time to stop taking everything ambiguously. The girl looks at the enraged demon and, seeing the magical fire, realizes that he is going to use force. Samuel watches what is happening in bewilderment and notes that it is inappropriate to talk to a beautiful lady like that. Having not come up with anything better, the Duchess points to the side and shouts that the terrible beast has returned. While Samuel is distracted, Catherine grabs Lucifer and runs away. Realizing that he had been tricked, the prince shouts after him that he never knew the name of the beautiful stranger. Turning around, the girl says that if they meet again, he will have a chance to recognize him. In the forest, Lucifer pins Catherine against a tree and angrily declares that he is just a pawn for her to push around. The girl wearily replies that the demon misunderstood everything, and now she will explain everything to him. The devil soulfully asks if the Duchess really dislikes him that much. Suddenly the man gets the idea that Catherine doesn't like him because he's not human. The Duchess looks at the demon in amazement and sees that he begins to cry. The girl realizes that she has brought the demon with the most unbreakable heart in the game to tears and comes to the conclusion that she is really doing something wrong. Catherine shakes her head forcefully and decides that she needs to follow the plot. Everyone else is just characters in the game. The girl asks the embarrassed Lucifer if he remembers their agreement. The Duchess puts her hand on the devil's cheek and says that she doesn't need love. She just needs to survive. The man asks if this means that the girl gets married, not because she loves, but because it is necessary for her goals. Pointing his finger at Catherine's chest, Lucifer says that he does not know about her plans, but in this place she is empty. Suddenly, a black beam of magic hits the Duchess, to which she asks in surprise what the demon is up to. Lucifer declares that despite the agreement, they can love each other and kisses the girl's lips. The man says that he will wait for the day when Catherine loves him, and then the black lotus will bloom in her heart. The demon, without looking up, looks at the Duchess and says that as soon as this day comes, he will pick the flower. Lucifer flies away, and Catherine shouts after him that he never learned how to get rid of the oppression of dark forces. Turning around, the devil says that he just needs to devour the heart of the Holy Virgin, and then he will become the same. The girl screams that she can help the devil find this very heart. Walking through the forest, Eve reflects that Catherine won Alice over to her side so that the princess would believe that she was betrayed, and now she is wounded and cannot shoot game. Coming out from behind the bushes, the princess suddenly sees the carcass of a huge beast and a man standing next to her. Approaching the stranger, Ava embarrassedly asks if he could give her this beast. The princess assures that she will repay the young man in full and introduces herself as Ava Christian. The prince easily agrees and asks why the girl needs such a carcass. Ava sheepishly replies that she needs to defeat someone. The princess briefly tells her story and adds that due to the madness of her horse, she is unable to hunt. The girl convinces the young man that she absolutely cannot lose to the vile scoundrel. Samuel clarifies whether he understood correctly that the princess wants to pass off the beast as her prey and win. Eva says that cheating, of course, is not good, but if the guy doesn't tell anyone about it, then she will pay him even more. The prince understands the girl's desire for revenge and therefore offers to help her deliver the loot to the camp. The princess returns to the amazed looks of the people and joyfully points to her prey. The girl comes to greet her father, who notices with alarm that the girl has been injured. Ava says that the forest is very dangerous and she injured herself through negligence, but thanks to her father's training, she was able to defeat the wild beast. The father is proud of his daughter and asks the name of the young man who helped her bring the loot. The young man respectfully introduces himself and says that he came from a neighboring kingdom to study and travel. The king joyfully asks if Samuel is King Edward's son, to which the young man nods in the affirmative. Ava turns to the guy in amazement. She could not even think that he was a prince. The king is glad to give the prince a worthy welcome and announces that since Eve has returned, he closes the hunt and announces the winner. The lord turns to Catherine and asks if she accepts her defeat. Samuel turns to Eve and loudly asks if this is the mean aunt the girl was talking about. The king furiously asks how the young man dares to call his future wife vile. The princess turns around in fear, not understanding how the prince could so vilely share what she told him in anger. Samuel tells the king that these are not his words, and it would be better for him to ask the princess about everything. The young man offers to find out from Eva where she got her loot, thinking that, unlike her, the vile aunt did not do this. Eve cannot hide her contempt. The pathetic prince betrayed her so vilely. Suddenly, Catherine declares that the one who brought the beast is the breadwinner, and she honestly admits her defeat. Samuel replies that Catherine is right, and in this case the spoils really belong to the princess. The Duchess looks at the prince, but she does not like his look at all. The girl thinks in despair that everything is falling apart. She urgently needs to correct the plot. Ekaterina frantically tries to remember what happened next in the plot of the game. The Duchess turns to the king and suggests holding a ball to properly welcome the guest. At the ball, the king and Duchess Catherine warmly welcome the prince. Samuel bows and says that he is glad to welcome the beautiful lady. The princess is angry that despite winning the hunt, all attention is focused on her aunt. The girl approaches Catherine and offers to drink wine with her as a sign of mutual respect. The Duchess sees that the princess's bitterness is at 60% and hopes that a turning point will soon come. The girl turns to Alice, who is holding a tray with a glass of wine. A moment later, what the Duchess was waiting for happens. Turning awkwardly, the knight knocks over a glass of wine on the girl's dress. Catherine is in anticipation. If everything goes according to plan, the death of the main villain will soon come. To speed up the plot and show off her mark at the ball, the girl spoiled her dress a little. Catherine saw that Alice was secretly spying on her and would certainly report everything to the princess. As soon as the young man approaches, the girl asks to give the dress to Eva as a gift. Alice passionately says that he does not believe in the mistress's meanness. The princess will soon become her daughter, and he does not understand how he can do this to her. Catherine coldly replies that if the young man considers her evil, then her actions must be evil, and if the guy does not hand over the dress, he will regret it. Turning away, the Duchess hopes that after her speech, the knight should do everything right and continue the story thread. Eve, having listened to Alice's story, asks in bewilderment if Catherine really said so. The knight declares that the princess should under no circumstances wear this dress, especially since the prince will be at the ball. Eva is upset and notices that her aunt is mocking her because no one is protecting her, and only faithful Alice can help her. The princess says that at the ball, she will offer the Duchess a drink, and the knight should throw wine on her, and then the girl will invite her aunt to change into her own dress. The knight is perplexed why he can't just leave the dress in the room, but Eve confidently says that if Alice doesn't help her, then Catherine will deal with her in the same way as with her mother. It occurs to the young man that all the time he has seen only how the princess is trying to harm the Duchess. But despite the fact that everyone blames her, Catherine always remains calm and unperturbed. But still, the guy could not disobey the princess. He looks upset at Catherine's dress and asks for forgiveness. Ava insidiously notices that the aunt has no spare dresses in the castle and reproaches the knight for inattention. The princess happily hands the Duchess the dress and says that she will be happy to give her her gift. Ekaterina accepts the dress with a smile and thanks the girl for her attentiveness. The Duchess quietly tells Lucifer that the Holy Maiden is present at the ball. The man needs to get lost in the crowd and look for her. Ava quietly asks the young man if he understood everything, and, if successful, promises to reward him. Catherine sees that a certain young man is heading towards her and understands that everything is going according to the script. He must invite her to dance. But suddenly, Samuel is ahead of the young man and asks the Duchess for permission to invite her to dance. Catherine is at a loss. On the one hand, she cannot refuse the prince, but on the other, this will again violate the script. In the end, the girl decides that it doesn't really matter who she dances with and graciously agrees. During the dance, a crash is heard, and the dress prepared by the Duchess falls apart, revealing the back with the mark. Catherine realizes with annoyance that the dress is completely out of place. To the girl's surprise, Lucifer, an ardent opponent of holy power, hesitated. Samuel takes off his cloak and quickly places it over the girl's shoulders, hiding the mark. The king runs up and attacks Eva, asking why the Duchess's dress came apart. But the girl says that it was her aunt who gave it to her. Samuel says that if the Duchess gave the dress, then there was nothing wrong with it. But then someone secretly altered it. The second princess rushes to Catherine's defense, convincing her that she is very kind. But everyone constantly misunderstands everything and attacks the lady. The king turns sharply to Eve and asks if she has anything to say. Catherine is surprised to notice that a lot of people who previously spoke badly about her came to her defense. Eve insists that she is incapable of doing anything wrong and does not understand why the prince constantly attacks her. The princess suggests asking Alice. He is his aunt's knight and will not hide the truth. The lord turns to the knight and orders him to tell everything as it really happened. Alice falls to his knee and says that the princess told him to spill a glass of wine on Madame Catherine's dress. Both girls open their mouths in amazement, not understanding why the knight decided to tell everything. Eve tries to justify herself by saying that Alice is lying, but the king sharply orders her to shut up. The father orders the guards to take his daughter away and tells her that until the girl realizes her guilt, she will not receive a penny. Catherine rushes to the man and says that the princess did not wish her harm. Most likely he just misunderstood something. The king admits that he missed out on raising his daughter and is embarrassed that his bride is being groundlessly accused. The man takes the girl to change clothes, and she reflects on the fact that in the end, the faithful prince betrayed the princess, and the king's attitude towards her changed noticeably. In the corridor, the king attacks the bride and says that she should be more careful and should not wear clothes that are too revealing. Catherine leaves, and the king orders the guard to kill anyone who lets slip about what happened and about the Holy Virgin. Having heard the conversation, Catherine realizes with fear that if earlier the ruler treated her very indifferently, now he strives to control her in everything. Samuel knocks on the door of the room and asks if Madame Catherine is there. The Duchess asks why the prince came. The young man reports that the ball is over, and he still did not have time to invite the lady to a meeting dedicated to training, which will take place in a few days. In the story, Catherine's reputation was damaged due to her eternal intrigues, and the love of Samuel and the princess blossomed. The girl recalls that Catherine, having not received an invitation to the meeting, arrived there without permission to ruin everything. But nothing worked out for the girl, and the love of the prince and princess became even stronger. Ekaterina understands that she needs to find a way out of the game at any cost, so she needs to complete the story at any cost. Having finished with the toilet, the Duchess leaves the room and says that she will definitely be at the meeting. Suddenly, the girl feels empowered. After all, she is the creator of this game, and any deviations in the plot should not scare her. The Holy Father listens with interest about what happened at the ball. A follower reports that many high-ranking guests saw this, but most of them do not know the meaning of the mark. The priest notes that those who know about the mark probably understood who Catherine is. The Holy Father releases the young man and notes that it is time to visit the future queen. Catherine gives the maid a letter and punishes that the princess must not find out about the sender. The Holy Father greets the Duchess and asks for forgiveness for disturbing her at such a late hour. The man admits that his words will sound rather strange, but still he asks the girl to refuse the wedding. The priest says that he is aware of the Duchess's father's request, but he himself occupies a very high position and in any case will be able to ensure the girl's safety. Touching Catherine's face, the Holy Father says that in return for what he can offer, he has a small request. Running his finger over Catherine's lips, the priest says that he is asking her for a very tiny reward. The Duchess suddenly asks why the Holy Father thought that she does not love the king. But even if this is true, then why should she cancel the wedding? The man replies that no one but him can provide the protection of the Holy Virgin. The Holy Father declares that now the girl is a real treasure that everyone would like to receive, so even the king is not able to provide her protection. Catherine thanks the priest for the offer, but admits that she cannot make a decision right away. She needs to think. The man notices that perhaps he was too persistent and asks the girl to think about his words. Leaving the room, the Holy Father orders the follower not to wait, but to finish off Madame Catherine. The young man, in fear, says that she is a holy virgin, but the priest replies that it no longer matters. The Holy Father coldly reports that since the Duchess does not want to serve him, then there is no need to leave her alive. Pressed against the wall, Catherine in despair thinks that she has really become bait, since even the Holy Father is interested in her. Annoyed, the girl thinks that she just wanted to complete the game, but every day the plot becomes more and more confusing. Suddenly, the girl feels someone's presence and asks in fear what Lucifer is doing here. Realizing that most likely the demon heard everything, the Duchess asks how long he has been standing here, to which he replies that it's enough. Catherine tries to explain that she has nothing in common with the Holy Father. Lucifer says that the pretender himself pestered the girl and is interested in whether he only touched her face. The man admits that as soon as he saw another man touching the girl, he felt so sad that he didn't even have the strength to breathe. Lucifer declares that the surest solution to this problem will be to kill everyone who dares to touch the Duchess, and then she will become his. Catherine doesn't have time to come to her senses when Lucifer approaches her and passionately kisses her on the lips. Suddenly, a strong ringing is heard in the girl's ear, and she presses her hand to it in fear. Lucifer gently touches the girl and asks her not to worry. It's just a spell working. The demon explains that if there is a large distance between them and he stops feeling the Duchess, he will lose control and kill all the men who bother her. The devil gets down on one knee and asks Catherine to never leave him and always be by his side. The girl says that she will agree if he does not kill the Holy Father, and now she has a lot to do. Lucifer's eyes light up with devilish fire, and he decides that he will deal with the Holy Father later. A maid enters the princess's chambers and reports that she was given a letter. While Eva is reading, the maid asks her to be careful because there is no information about the sender. The princess mysteriously replies that it doesn't matter. The important thing is that the sender also wants to get rid of Catherine. Catherine is getting ready to go, but Alice says that it is better for her to stay. The young man says that last night the princess met with a bunch of aristocrats to figure out how to annoy her aunt at the upcoming meeting. The knight says that if the Duchess leaves, something terrible might happen to her. The girl asks how the guy knows this, to which he replies that a former service comrade told him. Catherine cannot understand why, after the ball, Alice repeatedly betrays the princess whom he served faithfully. The girl slaps the guy on the chest and says that a villain like her is not afraid of any intrigues. Catherine notices that the young man seems to be the princess's faithful knight. Alice replies that he simply cannot break the knight's code. The young man admits that the Duchess is not a villain at all. She is simply forced to defend herself in unkind ways. The knight declares that even if he is not the strongest, but under his protection, the girl has no need to pretend to be a villain. Realizing that Catherine will go anyway, the knight promises to make every effort to protect her. Noticing that the Duchess has arrived, Samuel abandons his interlocutor and runs to meet her. The girl greets the prince and asks for forgiveness for being late. Eva grinningly tells the young man that after this meeting, things will go badly for him if he does not unite with her. The princess assures the guy that today they have a great opportunity to disgrace Catherine in front of everyone. The young people notice how the prince escorts the duchess to the seats prepared for the guests close to the king. The young man approaches the prince and notices that they have all arrived for training and does not understand why the lady, whose assessment of governing the country is very low, is sitting in the best places. Elsa notices that Catherine will not even understand how to make the state stronger. The girl continues that the princess, out of the kindness of her heart, will answer all questions instead of the villain. Samuel asks in surprise whether the princess knows the answer to the question of how to make the state stronger. Ava understands that everything in the letter was true, and the prince came to find out how to strengthen the state. The princess confidently replies that it is necessary to give citizens the opportunity to improve their situation. If they become better off, then the state will become stronger. Ava seriously says that the head of state cannot simply belong to the upper class. It is their duty to make the lives of ordinary citizens better. Samuel notes with approval that he had not thought about how understanding the princess was about this problem. Ekaterina happily understands that there has been a shift in the relationships of young people. The young man turns to the duchess and asks what her opinion is on this matter. Deciding that it would be best to disagree with the princess, the girl decisively declares that it is very difficult to give ordinary citizens the opportunity to get rich. The prince thoughtfully says that even if people have more opportunities, it is not a fact that they will be able to use them correctly. Samuel states that the duchess's remarks completely refute the princess's point of view. Eve turns to the young man and reminds him of her assignment. The young man approaches the duchess and says that the girl's teacher clearly underestimated her, and the guy also heard that she had low grades in horse riding. Elsa, with a grin, invites Catherine to prove herself. Otherwise, they have already begun to suspect the teachers of incompetence. Ava innocently declares that this is a bad idea, in case Aunt can't handle the horse and shows herself badly in front of everyone. Everyone looks at the Duchess, and she realizes that she has fallen into a typical trap. Alice steps forward and declares that the lady is not feeling well, and now is not the time for riding. The young man declares that he, as a knight, will compete with the princess instead of the Duchess. Samuel offers himself as a partner, which would be very fair, and offers to choose swords. The young men go out into the garden and draw their swords, preparing for a fight. Watching the fight, Catherine thinks that in the game, Alice was made much stronger than ordinary people. But if you compare the young man with all the other characters, he is the weakest of all. The knight approaches the Duchess and says with shame that he has disgraced her with his defeat. Samuel approaches the girl and asks her to teach the young man the correct political views. The girl looks at the evil Eve and understands that again her plan failed, and everything turned out exactly the opposite. The Duchess is forced to refuse. Her knight is wounded, and she considers it necessary to treat him. The disappointed prince apologizes to the remaining guests and says that he needs to go urgently, and the meeting is over. Ava turns to the young man and declares that the prince has no business. He simply doesn't care about them. The princess irritably thinks that in the prince's thoughts there is only Catherine, and everything the girl does is in vain. Catherine tells Alice to make sure that all things are collected. It's time for them to hit the road. The prince approaches the girl and sadly asks if Madame Catherine is already leaving. The Duchess replies that she really has to go. She's already been too late. The young man gives the girl a brooch and says that this is a symbol of his state. If the girl is in trouble, she can always turn to his people. The prince says soulfully that he has been to many places, but he could not even think that he would ever meet her. Samuel kisses the girl's hand and hopes that one day he will have the chance to bring her to his kingdom. Catherine is amazed to realize that the young man has just actually confessed his feelings to her. The Duchess coldly replies that the prince's visit must be due to a more serious purpose. The girl says that as far as she knows, power in the northern kingdom has been seized by other princes, and Samuel has no reason to even think about taking the throne. Catherine bows to the young man and asks him to forgive her for his rudeness. Straightening up, the girl declares that she is the future queen, so sometimes she can take liberties. As usual, Ava hides around the corner and overhears the conversation between her aunt and the prince. Samuel changes his face and orders the guard to keep an eye on Catherine and find out everything possible about her. Sitting in the carriage, the Duchess understands that she had to say something that would confuse the prince, but then he will definitely thank her. The girl reflects that she will have to abandon the storyline with the prince, but the line with Lucifer is also lost. With bewilderment, Catherine reflects that Alice was her last hope. Suddenly, Ava approaches the carriage and asks permission to go with her aunt because her carriage has broken down. Ekaterina recalls that according to the plot of the game, it was in the carriage that the heroines clarified all the misunderstandings, and together they need to confront external troubles. The Duchess tells the princess that she would be happy to spend time with her on the road. Catherine begins the conversation by saying that she never wanted to hurt the princess. Ava replies that she knows about this. They are one family, and her aunt cannot wish her harm. The girl squeezes the Duchess's hand and asks if her aunt can forgive her. Ekaterina is surprised that the main character has wised up so quickly and takes the necessary phrases right off her tongue. Ava thinks that she needs to behave more carefully so that her aunt does not understand the princess's true intentions. Suddenly, the carriage stops and the girls hear loud screams. Before leaving, Eve orders the knight to pretend to be a thug and make an attempt on Catherine's life. The princess understands that the knight is no match for Alice, so he only needs to pretend. Catherine looks out of the carriage window and asks what is happening. Suddenly, the door opens and a man with a hidden face appears before the girls. Eva feigns fear and screams that they were attacked by a thug. The mercenary pulls a dagger from his belt and points it directly at Catherine. The princess, according to her plan, nobly covers her aunt, but the knife plunges into her stomach. The girl looks at the blood in amazement and realizes that they were not attacked by the one she persuaded. Jumping out of the carriage, the mercenary jumps onto the roof and Alice immediately runs up to him. Jumping off the roof, the criminal looks back at the girls and mutters that the girl is useless anyway. The knight tries to catch up with the mercenary and cuts off part of his sleeve with his sword. On his bare shoulder, Alice is amazed to see a rather remarkable tattoo. The young man remembers how a man with the same tattoo strangled his father. Sitting in the thickets of grass, the mother covered her son's mouth, but he watched in horror as his father was killed. Alice looks at the mercenary with rage and says that he is the same devil. The man understands, covers the mark with his hand, but understands that he is recognized. Alice orders all knights to capture the killer and promises a generous reward. Catherine lays the princess on the floor of the carriage and says that she will call for help. Eve notices the knight in the window whom she persuaded and realizes that the perfect moment has come. The guy tries to justify himself, but the princess says that there is no time and orders him to kill the Duchess as soon as possible. The knight quickly overtakes Catherine and, taking out his sword, pierces her through. At the same moment, Lucifer appears and picks up the falling girl. The demon turns in anger and notices the princess peeking out in the carriage. The devil instantly grabs the girl by the neck and shouts that it was she who killed the Duchess. Returning to the carriage, Alice is amazed to see Catherine lying on the ground and the demon that attacked the princess. The young man immediately draws his sword and runs to Lucifer, ordering him to let Eve go. The devil angrily says that no one has the right to tell him, and the guy's sword falls into small pieces. Using magic, Lucifer lifts the young people into the air and declares that they and Catherine will go to the next world. Alice understands that the demon is too strong. The guy has no strength at all to resist. Catherine tries with her last strength to stop Lucifer, saying that it was not they who attacked her. The devil falls to his knees in front of the girl, realizing that he can do nothing to help her. Lucifer reflects that the Duchess cannot just disappear. Their souls are connected by a spell, and now she should be in her home. Instantly opening the portal, the devil picks up the girl in his arms and quickly disappears. Catherine sits up on the bed, and Lucifer cannot believe that she is alive. The girl grabs the demon by the shoulders and assures him that it was not the princess who killed her. Lucifer does not listen to the Duchess. He leans on her and tries to kiss her, but she stubbornly asks him to listen to her. Suddenly, the devil bursts into tears and asks Catherine not to scare him like that again. Man, not embarrassed by his tears, he says that he cannot imagine his life without her. Pressing the girl to the bed, Lucifer assures that the girl owes neither the king nor the princess anything. Looking at the demon, the Duchess reasons that instead of looking for the right ending, it seems to her that staying in the game forever is not a bad option either. Opening the carriage door, Alice asks the princess for forgiveness for failing to protect her. The guy bows his head and says that he will accept any punishment from the king. Eve realizes with irritation that the knight is more worried not about her injury, but about Catherine's death. The girl extends her hand to the knight and tells him to carry her inside in his arms. Confused, Alice bows to the princess and says that it would be wrong because he has feelings for a certain girl. The amazed Eve demands that the knight immediately tell him which girl he is talking about. The young man sadly says that the girl's name no longer matters because she is no longer there. Alice orders the knight standing nearby to escort the princess to her chambers. Eva asks in surprise where the guy is in such a hurry. He answers that he needs to find Catherine's body. Turning around, the knight says that he must find the body no matter what. He must not allow the dirty demon to discredit her. The young man heads towards the cart and, out of habit, puts his hand on his sword, but is surprised to notice that it is not there. The knight fearfully asks the princess what he should do now, because he killed the future queen. Eve thoughtfully says that Catherine's body disappeared along with the demon, which means that anyone will think that he was the one who killed her. Alice hears the princess's words with rage, standing behind the slightly open door. The young man understands that it was the princess who planned everything so carefully. The girl attacks the knight and warns that if he opens his mouth, his whole family will have a hard time. Suddenly, the princess hears footsteps approaching and fearfully asks who came there. A disappointed Alice slowly approaches Eve. The girl asks in surprise what he is doing here. The princess looks thoughtfully at the young man and wonders if he heard everything. The knight confirms that he heard every word and could not think that the princess had become a murderer. The young man twists the knight, declaring that he will not let any criminal escape who dares to touch Catherine. Eva realizes with horror that she must stop Alice by any means possible because her father loves her aunt so much. The girl reminds the knight that they grew up together, and he cannot want the evil scoundrel to kill her. The knight notices that before the princess was the kindest and taught him to take responsibility for his mistakes, how can she now say such terrible things? Eva angrily says that she was kind until Catherine killed her mother. If the girl does not become tough, she will end up the same way. The girl tells the young man not to forget that it was she who took him from the mountain of corpses and gave him a future. Eve wonders if Alice will really allow her savior to die because of Catherine. The knight angrily replies that he will not say a word to the king, but this will be the last service he will render to Eve. Alice turns around and leaves saying that he doesn't owe the princess anything else. The king sits in an embrace with a girl and indifferently accepts the news that Catherine is dead. The man sighs and says that it's a pity, and now there's one less tool in the fight against the Holy Father. The girl suggests that the king blame the priest for this incident because it was he who trained the knight Alice. The man admits it's a great idea, then pushes the girl to the floor and orders the guards to kill her. The girl clings to the ruler in horror, not understanding why he is doing this to her. The king declares that the girl is too noisy and orders the knight to carry out the order. Turning around, the man with a grin orders his beloved daughter Eva to be brought to him. The princess approaches her father and anxiously asks why her father wanted to see her so urgently. The man replies that he just wanted to know how exactly Catherine's murder happened. Eva, horrified, says that she was wounded, fainted, and does not remember what happened next. The king begins to shout that his daughter should remember how Knight Alice deliberately led the knights away so that it would be easier for the demon to kill Catherine. Having calmed down, the father says that he will call Alice and interrogate him to find out the true cause of the Duchess's death. The Holy Father angrily says that for 30 years they managed to hide their organization, and the follower allowed Alice to find out everything. The young man sadly says that he is very sorry and asks to be locked in a dungeon for 10 days. The Holy Father says that this is not a punishment and orders the knight to go to prison and perform a ritual of self-purification. The priest thinks irritably that he wanted to use Alice for his own purposes, but now he has to get rid of him. Eva finds no place for herself in her chambers. The nasty Catherine creates problems for the girl even after death. The princess says that if this continues, her father will sentence her to death, just like her mother, and wonders who can help her. Behind the girl, the voice of the Holy Father is heard, promising to help the princess. The priest puts his hand on Eve's head and says that he will solve the problem if the princess will act together with him. The girl looks at the Holy Father in surprise and asks why he wants to help her. The man explains that he and the princess's mother had known each other for a long time, and before her death, she asked to take care of her daughter. The queen asked to look after Eva because she considered her a kind and fragile girl. The priest states that the best way to solve the problem is to get rid of Knight Alice. The princess is frightened by the words of the Holy Father, but he assures that he will help the girl with this. Meanwhile, Catherine, whom everyone believes to be dead, is trying to cope with the pressure of Lucifer. The demon stares at the Duchess and begs her to be with him. Kissing the girl tenderly and passionately, the devil says that he will not accept any refusal. Catherine persistently asks Lucifer to stop and declares that she agrees. The Duchess explains that she agrees to stay in this world and does not mean following the demon everywhere. Lucifer upsetly says that you cannot first agree and then retract your words. Catherine, in despair, thinks that first she needs to clear her reputation and become free, and only then deal with other problems. The Duchess is the main villain and enemy of the Alliance of Justice, so at a minimum, you need to calm all enemies in order to stay in the game and live in safety. The main problem lies in the princess, in whose heart there is only hatred and the desire for revenge. Lucifer declares that he will not allow the girl to return to a bunch of non-entities. He must always be by her side. The demon shouts that he will kill the king, take over the kingdom, and then no one will dare to offend Catherine. The girl tries to calm the devil and says that if he behaves quietly, he can stay close to her. The Duchess walks down the corridor and hears the voice of Alice, who assures her father that he will avenge the girl's death. Catherine goes out into the hall. Both men freeze in silent amazement. The girl understands that because of Lucifer, she forgot about her death and declares that she will explain everything now. The knight runs up to his mistress, not believing his eyes that the girl is really alive. Alice falls to his knees, takes the Duchess's hand, and realizes that she is indeed alive. With great relief, the young man kisses the Duchess's hand and admits that he was sure that she was no longer there. Looking at the girl, the knight declares that his carelessness has put her in great danger. Alice asks Catherine to enter into a contract with him so that he will become her faithful servant, and declares that from now on he entrusts his life to her. Lucifer cannot contain his rage that someone dared to touch his woman. Catherine tries to calm the demon, realizing that if these two are constantly near her, her life will turn into a nightmare. A maid approaches the knight and reports that the Holy Father wants to see Mr. Alice. Duke Bella tells his daughter that since she is okay, she should go to the king and calm him down. Catherine reflects that since she has decided to stay and get rid of her reputation as a villain, then first of all it is necessary to resolve the issue with the king. The girl tells her father that she has thought about everything well and decided not to marry the king. Duke Rothschild remarks that his stupid daughter must be scared because she should be happy that the king loves her. Catherine declares that she is a living person and not at all a tool for achieving power. Everyone knows what happened to the eldest duchess. Being the king's wife is just a fleeting glory. The father states that the sisters were raised to protect their family, and Catherine has no right to refuse the king. The Duke orders the servants to watch every step of his daughter, who from now on is forbidden to leave her chambers. The father leans towards his daughter and says threateningly that if she mentions this topic again, he will show her how their family gets rid of useless non-entities. Turning to the maid, Bella orders the king to be informed that Catherine is all right. The girl listens in surprise as her father tells her to tell him that they have always revered the god of light, and it was he who brought Catherine back to life. Having learned that the Duchess is alive, the king says with annoyance that he has lost an excellent reason to ruin the life of the Holy Father. The Lord pushes his mistress away and declares that since Catherine has returned to life, she needs to get lost. The girl is amazed to hear that the king loves the Duchess with all his heart and cannot cheat on her. The man thoughtfully says that an ordinary person cannot just resurrect, but the Holy Virgin is quite capable of it. The king orders the knight to ask the princess if anyone saw the manifestation of dark forces when the attack on Catherine was made. The man orders rumors to be spread among the people that the king's beloved was almost destroyed by dark forces, and all because the church failed to cope with its task. eavesdropping on the conversation, Eva realizes with horror that the king wants to slander the Holy Father. The priest calmly listens to the princess's report of what was said by the king. The Holy Father notes that he has allowed a traitor to occupy the throne for too long, and the time has come to change the ruler. Eve asks the priest that she herself saw how Catherine died. How could she then be resurrected? The man says that in addition to the dark forces, there is another forbidden force that allows you to reverse life or death. Even the Holy Virgin does not possess this great power, so there can only be one conclusion. Eve realizes that her aunt made a contract with the demon, and it was he who was able to resurrect her. The Holy Father thinks that all is not lost and he can thwart the king's plans. When news of the demon spreads throughout the kingdom, the best time will come to present evidence to the people. The Knight of Light tells the priest that Alice has arrived. The man remarks that he arrived just in time. The priest leans towards the knight and says that he has already heard the news about the death of the Duchess and asks where her body is now. Alice glares at the man and states that Mrs. Catherine is alive. The priest feigns surprise and realizes that the princess did not lie. The girl really was resurrected. The man asks with feigned amazement how this is possible, since there is only one force in the world that can bring a person back to life. Alice categorically states that this is impossible. The God of Light probably resurrected Catherine by his will. The Holy Father notices that it is difficult to believe the worst and invites the knight to go with him and see everything with his own eyes. The priest points to the symbols on the floor and says that he noticed this recently. Someone must have come here and removed the seal that bound the demon. The man notices that this is the most powerful demon that has existed in the last 100 years, and only he can bring a person back to life. Alice states that the Duchess could not conspire with dark forces, because the demon, on the contrary, wounded her. Turning sharply, the Holy Father authoritatively declares that there can be no doubt. The priest reminds the code of the Knight of Light that they are obliged to resist the creatures of dark forces and fight in the name of the God of Light. The man states that it doesn't matter whether Catherine conspired with dark forces. Alice's duty is to cleanse the world of evil, because honor is the most important thing. The knight embarrassedly says that if he does this, then Madame Catherine's reputation will be tarnished. Eve intervenes in the conversation and asks if Alice is really ready to allow the demon to do arbitrary things for the sake of the evil woman who killed her mother. Taking the young man by the hand, Eve reminds him that she and the Holy Father once saved him, so they must be on the same side. Alice pulls his hand away and notices that he has already repaid the debt to the princess, hiding from the king that it was she who organized the murder of Catherine. The Holy Father declares that the knight must collect evidence confirming the connection of the Duchess with dark forces. Walking down the corridor, Alice ponders how to prove that Catherine herself became a victim of the demon. Suddenly, the young man hears stomping and sees the Duchess quickly running towards him. The girl has gone too fast and realizes that she won't have time to slow down, so she screams loudly for Alice to let her through. The knight picks up the girl, saving her from the collision, and asks if she's all right. A few moments later, Catherine asks why the young man is looking at her like that and how long he plans to hold her. A maid appears in the corridor and asks the lady to return to her chambers, because she cannot go out without her father's knowledge. The girl leaves, noticing with irritation that she almost managed to escape. Lucifer asks why he can't just teleport his mistress, but Catherine replies that she has to do something while she's here. The girl thinks that she needs to resolve all the misunderstandings with the princess and the wedding issue as quickly as possible. The main reason for the enmity between Eva and Catherine is the wedding, which was announced by the king. Eve's mother was accused of having connections with dark forces and executed, and Catherine received the opportunity to become the next queen, so the princess is sure that it was her aunt who set everything up. The Duchess hopes that if she refuses the wedding, then all the problems with Eva will be solved on their own. Catherine does not understand how she can resolve everything now, and Lucifer declares that he is not going to calm her down. A servant comes to Samuel and tells him that he has information that the prince ordered to get. The servant says that people are discussing the fact that the future queen is connected with dark forces. The prince thinks for a moment, and then orders the servant to spread the rumor that the lady is really connected with dark forces, and therefore has no right to take the throne. Samuel speaks of the need for a unanimous demand from the people to refuse the wedding of Catherine and the king. While walking around the city, Alice hears rumors that Catherine is an evil witch who killed her sister to become queen. The knight intervenes in the conversation, declaring that all this is not true, and the Duchess herself does not want the wedding. The young men advise Alice to read morals to the aristocrats, because they were the ones who lost sight of Catherine's evil essence. The knight is confused about the fact that the lady suffered from dark forces, and he not only cannot help her, but he himself begins to doubt whether she really is a villain. Returning to the Duke's castle, Alice falls to his knees in front of his mistress and asks to punish him. Seeing Catherine's puzzled look, the knight explains that he cannot help her. The young man says that everyone in the city is gossiping about the mistress's connection with dark forces. People are scared and want to ask the king to cancel the wedding. The girl looks at the knight in amazement, thinking that she is simply incredibly lucky. Alice admits that he does not understand this gossip and is ashamed that he cannot do anything to stop it. Catherine declares that the knight cannot control what others say, and he is not obliged to. Time itself will put everything in its place. The girl notices that the young man has nothing to do with the rumors, and he is not a saint, so he should stop trying to behave accordingly. Alice recalls an episode where the Holy Father beat him with a whip, forcing him to memorize the knight's code of honor. Grabbing the young man by the face, the priest angrily said that they were obliged to resist the dark forces and fight in the name of the God of Light. The man called to remember that the God of Light gave the young man this honor and power, and for the people he is now a messenger of the God of Light. The Holy Father said that the messenger should not be allowed dark desires, so if the young man breaks his fast again, he will learn what divine punishment is. Emerging from his memories, the knight admits that he really is not a saint. There's a knock on the door, and the maid reports that the king is calling the lady to his place. Catherine heads to the king, thinking that everything is turning out too simply, when suddenly she hears the sounds of a quarrel. The Duchess sees two younger princesses fighting over some sweets. Noticing Catherine, the second princess runs up to her with a plate and says that she was very worried and ordered sweets from the pastry chef especially for her. The third princess snatches the plate and declares that it was entirely her initiative. Ekaterina looks in amazement at her favorite candies, which she secretly brought into the office while working on the game. The girl doesn't have time to take the delicacy when Eva flies up and forcefully knocks the plate out of her sister's hands. The girls attack the princess, accusing her of constantly looking for reasons to quarrel. Eva angrily shouts that the people are rioting and demanding that the wedding be canceled, and the sisters are still sucking up to their aunt. The girls tell Eva to stop bullying them and say that they have not heard any such rumors. The princess thinks with irritation that it is useless to explain anything to the stupid sisters, but understands that one way or another, she needs allies. Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, Eve notices Prince Samuel entering the corridor and realizes that this is her chance. Turning to her sisters, the princess says that she wishes only the best for them and is worried that they will not be considered accomplices. The second princess declares that she does not know about Catherine's entering into a conspiracy with dark forces, but Eve is definitely a bad person and pushes the girl with force. Samuel catches the falling princess and carefully asks if everything is okay with her. Catherine finally understood why Eva suddenly became prettier. Pretending to be cute is very effective. The princess asks for forgiveness from her sister and says that she herself could not stand on her feet. The third princess is about to attack Eva, but Catherine stops her, thinking that if the sisters continue to fight, Eva will only hate her more. Suddenly, behind the girls, the voice of the king is heard, who wonders what all the noise is about. Having hugged Catherine, the king notices that he has not seen his future wife for a long time and misses her very much. Noticing the prince, the king greets him and offers him tea, and at the same time help him choose a dress for his bride. The man turns to the Duchess and says that the tailors have already made the dresses, and the girl should try them on. Having put on her wedding dress, Catherine sadly thinks that everything is again not going according to plan. The king, seeing the bride, declares that he made the right choice, Not a single girl can compare with Catherine in beauty, even her late sister. Squeezing the girl's hand, the man claims that the people will be struck by her beauty and will no longer dare to disrespect her. The Duchess becomes uncomfortable with the king's touch, and she decides that she can no longer delay canceling the wedding. Eva sadly says that her aunt is incredibly beautiful in her dress and reminds her very much of her mother. The king demands his daughter to stop mentioning that woman, but the girl begins to cry, explaining that she misses her very much. Prince Samuel helpfully hands Eve a handkerchief and asks her to stop crying. Turning to the king, Catherine notices that the young people clearly have feelings for each other. The Duchess says that marriage will help strengthen the friendship between the two states, and that the young people look great together. Catherine hopes that if she brings the prince and princess together, she will not only win her over, but also reduce her level of bitterness. The younger princesses shout angrily that Aunt only cares about Eve, and they too are not averse to marrying the prince. The king asks Eve how she likes this idea. The daughter respectfully replies that she will obey her father's will, and she herself thinks that Samuel will be an excellent ally. But suddenly the prince declares that any of his brothers would be honored to marry Princess Eva. Samuel, looking at the princess, says that the wedding is not in his plans because he still has a lot to do. Eva is furious when she thinks that the prince had agreed with Catherine in advance, and that her aunt wanted to disgrace her with her proposal in front of everyone. The girl curtsies, thanks her aunt for her concern, and advises her to better take care of her wedding. The sisters mock Eva, saying that she believed in herself so much, and in the end, she was simply rejected. Eva explodes and screams that since her mother died, her sisters have done nothing but pester her. The princesses accuse their sister of only pretending to be a victim, and the whole world should not revolve around her. The third princess swings at Eve, shouting that after the death of the queen, the girl is just a pathetic dummy. Samuel intercepts the third princess's hand and calls on her to behave with dignity. The guy claims that he refused the wedding for personal reasons, and Princess Eva had nothing to do with it. Turning to the girl, the prince admits that he is ashamed that because of him the princess is forced to listen to such insults. Eva looks after the departing prince and hopes that he is not indifferent to her, which means there is still a chance to win him over to her side. Catherine gives the dress to the maid and asks the king for permission to tell him something. The man readily declares that he will fulfill any request of the bride, but the girl declares that she wants to cancel the wedding. The king looks at the bride in bewilderment and asks her to repeat what she said again. Catherine resolutely looks into the eyes of the ruler and declares that she wants to cancel the wedding. The Duchess says that the king can find a woman with a good reputation, and then they can find their happiness. The king looks closely at the girl and asks who told her to say this, but she assures that these are her thoughts. The man hugs Catherine and declares that they had to go through a lot to be together, even get rid of the queen. So now, because of some rumors, she will give up everything. The girl remembers her last meeting with her sister and wonders why, if the king was involved in all this, she asked to take her place. The Duchess comes to the conclusion that there are some secrets involved in this story that are connected with the fact that the king so persistently wants to get married. The man notices that his bride hasn't had much rest lately, which is why she's saying all sorts of nonsense. He tells Alice to take the Duchess to her chambers. A knight arrives, greeting the lord, and the man orders his secret order to be conveyed to the Duke of Rothschild. The king says that the father should not take his eyes off his daughter, and no one should interfere with her rest. Leaving the king, Catherine realizes with hopelessness that, judging by the reaction, the king does not intend to cancel the wedding. Suddenly, Samuel grabs the girl's hand and asks why she offered to marry the princess. Catherine snatches her hand away and thoughtfully asks why the prince was so dissatisfied with her proposal. The young man calmly replies that no man would be happy that his beloved wants to entrust him into the hands of another woman. The guy presses the Duchess against the wall and invites her to marry him, thus gaining the strength to confront the king. The girl angrily asks what kind of power she can count on if no one listens to the prince himself in his kingdom. The young man is embarrassed, and the Duchess assumes that the prince wants to marry her in order to seize the power of her family and pave the way for a bright future. Leaving, Catherine notes that it is very stupid to sacrifice your happiness in marriage and exchange it for power. The fate of her sister is the best confirmation of this. Alice, standing around the corner, is surprised to hear the mistress's words that she wants to be with the one she loves, and her status and origin do not matter to her. Hearing the last words, the young man presses his hand to his heart, which is ready to jump out of his chest with excitement. Catherine collapses on the bed, thinking in despair that all her plans are falling apart. There's a knock on the door. Alice comes in and says that he has brought something for his mistress. The knight says that he saw the scene with the candies, so he asked the pastry chef to make more. Handing the basket to the girl, Alice says that if she loves these candies so much, then maybe she can love him at least a little. Catherine, in a panic, thinks that she managed to take this guy away from the princess. The young man falls to his knee and says that initially he was supposed to simply protect the Duchess, but in the end, he fell in love. In despair, Alice says that he used to believe the rumors about the mistress and understands that he has no forgiveness, but still, he would like to ask for something. The knight asks to be given the opportunity to protect Catherine forever, and he even agrees to protect her husband if necessary. Alice asks the girl to brand him, and at that moment Catherine realizes that Lucifer is already on the verge of an explosion. The knight, without stopping, says that the lady can do whatever she wants with him, without noticing the black waves of dark magic. Lucifer, who has escaped, grabs Alice by the throat and angrily shouts that the guy does not dare to point him out to a woman. The girl grabs the demon's hand, demanding to leave the knight alone. The devil turns and suspiciously asks why the lady is protecting the boy. Does she really love him too? Catherine declares that she cannot explain everything in a nutshell and suggests that the demon first let Alice go, and then she will tell everything. Throwing the knight aside, Lucifer says that he always listened to Catherine and trusted her, but obviously he was wrong. The demon declares that he was too naive, and the Duchess is frightened by the expression on his face. The girl decides that she needs to run, but Lucifer seals the door with a wave of his hand. The devil, unbuttoning his shirt, declares that in order to gain power over his mistress, he needs to master her. Catherine's hands are tied, and the girl screams in anger that if Lucifer does not let her go now, she will stop loving him and will hate him forever. The devil looks at the girl in surprise and asks if he heard right. The lady really loves him. The Duchess, in despair, says that she didn't mean it that way. She likes Lucifer a little. But if you don't let go, then this drop of love will melt. Lucifer joyfully declares that he is ready to obey and naively asks when the girl will love him completely. Sitting in his room, Alice tries to calm down and plunges into memories. The Holy Father asks with contempt whether the young man has already forgotten what he did. At 10 years old, Alice confidently held a wooden sword in his hands and trained at every opportunity. One day, a knight approached the boy and asked where he could find the Green family. Alice joyfully replied that he would escort the man. When the knight asks what the boy does, the child says that he dreams of becoming a real knight. The man says that becoming a knight is not easy, but a little guy like Alice will be swept away in battle, and he will run to cry. The child offendedly says that since the age of 8, he has been able to hold back his tears because a knight of light should not cry. The man pats the boy on the head and laughs, asking for forgiveness for his bias. The knight inquires about the boy's name, and the child reveals that his name is Alice Green. The knight lags behind the boy and quietly asks the kid for forgiveness, twirling the black flame in his palm. The boy sees a knight strangling his father, and he screams in despair that there is a demon in front of him. Alice rushes to his father, intending to protect him, but his mother holds the boy tightly. The mother hides the child in a haystack, begging him to sit quietly and not give himself away. Having dealt with his father, the knight grabs his mother, noticing that another of the Greens is still alive. After a while, the boy begins to cry loudly, blaming himself for the death of his parents, because it was he who brought the demon to them. At this moment, someone dismantles the boards with which the hay is piled up, and a beautiful girl appears in front of Alice. Eva turns to the Holy Father and says that there really was a boy hiding under the rubble. At the age of 13, the Holy Father beat Alice mercilessly, insisting that he must train hard to become the strongest knight and take revenge on the demon. The priest says that Alice constantly disappoints him and demands that he repeat what he should do. The young man, with tears in his eyes, repeats that he must train hard to kill the demon and take revenge. Heading towards the church, the knight thinks that the lady is not guilty of anything. The demon has seduced her, and she needs to ask the Holy Father to save her. Eva reports to the priest that the king does not intend to cancel the wedding. On the contrary, in 3 days at a church ceremony, he is going to announce the wedding date. The princess says that her father did not pay attention to the will of the people and acted in his own way, which is completely unlike him. The Holy Father reasons that the ruler intends to tell the truth about Catherine and thereby win the support of the people. Light and darkness are old enemies. If the king proves that Catherine is a holy virgin, then rumors about her connection with dark forces will disappear by themselves. If the king marries the Holy Virgin, his position will be higher than that of the Holy Father. The priest understands that the king has only one goal: to remove him. Eva asks with fear what they should do. No one should find out about Catherine's secret. The man convinces the girl not to worry, because together they will definitely cope with everything. A friend, Alice, runs into the hall screaming and declares that the Holy Father was right and the Duchess was really seduced by a demon. Leaving the hall, the young man heard a conversation between the priest and Eva and did not understand why he had to wait 3 days before the ceremony and grab the demon in front of a huge public. The knight listens in surprise as the Holy Father decides to get ahead of the king and lure out the demon with a spell. The priest states that once the time is right, they will lure the demon out and see what is faster, the king's plans or their actions. In despair, Alice realizes that if he makes the demon appear, everyone will believe that the mistress is connected with dark forces. A servant gives the Rothschilds an invitation to a church ceremony during which the king will announce the wedding. Duke Bella asks the king to be told that Catherine will be at the ceremony on time. Alice, who is present during the conversation, quickly leaves, deciding that the girl should not attend the ceremony. The servant unties the mistress's hands and asks for forgiveness, but he was only following the Duke's orders. The young man quietly asks Catherine to be obedient, because the Duke said that he would take his daughter to the ceremony, even if she was unconscious. Alice enters the chambers and notices that he does not feel dark forces. It is obvious that the demon is not there. The knight grabs the girl by the hand and says that they need to run away. Catherine does not understand why he is trying to help her if he knows about Lucifer. The young man explains that he wants to take the lady to a safe place where her father will not find her, and thus she will miss the ceremony. Catherine stares at the knight and asks why he decided that she did not want to go to the ceremony. The girl declares that she really wants to be there and will be the most beautiful at the same time. In the church, Alice does not take his eyes off the Duchess and thinks that he must protect his beloved at all costs. The young man remembers the words of the priest that when the time comes, they will force the demon to show himself and make sure that the rumors of a conspiracy with dark forces are confirmed. Alice understands that under no circumstances should he allow Catherine to be hurt again. The king stands up and declares that before the ceremony, he would like to say a few words. The servant leans towards Catherine and says that the king invites her to come up to him. The girl walks down the aisle, and the king at this time says that he was lonely after the death of the queen, but then he met his love. The sovereign announces the upcoming wedding, and at this time Catherine thinks that the time has come for her exit. Alice quickly makes his way through the crowd and suddenly comes across a knight with a tattoo so familiar to him. The young man grabs the knight by the hand, who at that time was about to activate the seal using magic, and shouts that it was he who killed his family. Catherine looks at the young people in surprise. Alice angrily asks how the killer dared to put on the clothes of a follower of the God of Light. The knight shouts that he has no idea what the boy is talking about and sends a fireball at him, and Alice does not understand why the demon has light magic. If a demon uses light magic, he can get burned, but a follower of the God of Light can freely use dark magic. Suddenly, the young man says that he now understands why, on that terrible day, the killer's magic was not black, but only gray. Drawing his sword, Alice runs towards the Holy Father, declaring that the killer of his family was not a demon at all. Catherine watches what is happening in amazement. Everything did not go according to script and does not understand why the plot is changing so rapidly. The priest repels the knight's attack and orders him to be captured because he has been possessed by a demon. Turning to his brothers, Alice screams in despair that it was the Holy Father who killed his family 11 years ago. Lucifer reflects that the priest secretly taught his students forbidden techniques so that they would transform into demons, all just to strengthen his power. The Holy Father shouts at Alice to shut his mouth immediately. The Holy Father shouts that it is necessary to immediately cleanse the boy of the demon using light magic. Lucifer tells Catherine that the boy is too weak, and if he continues to fight, the old man will kill him. The devil, taking on his usual appearance, shouts to the girl that he must certainly save the naive boy. The knights look at what is happening in amazement. Since the demon came to Alice's rescue, it means he is really in cahoots with him. The Holy Father tells Lucifer with satisfaction that he has finally decided to show himself. The demon notes with a grin that last time the priest failed to kill him, and it was obvious that he would return for revenge. Lucifer, summoning his dark power, declares that he is now much stronger. Panic begins in the crowd, and Catherine realizes that the priest is an important character, and Lucifer cannot be allowed to kill him. The girl makes her way through the crowd of people to the epicenter of the events. But at some point, someone's hand deals a powerful blow to her neck. Instantly losing consciousness, the Duchess falls straight into her father's arms. The king orders Rothschild to take Catherine to the royal chambers and announce that she is a holy virgin as soon as possible. Watching the fight, the overlord says that they need to hurry while no one bothers them. A servant comes to Samuel and excitedly says that an incident happened in the church. The prince understands that the day has come when the cunning fox Holy Father could not hide his secret. Suddenly, the young man feels a sharp pain in his heart and instinctively grabs his chest. The servant carefully seats the prince on the couch, noticing with alarm that his heart hurts again. The servant says that they checked the information about Catherine. She is indeed from an ordinary aristocratic family, and Samuel needs to quickly find a suitable girl. The prince does not understand how the Duchess was able to find out what is connected with his family, if she is from a simple family. Another servant runs into the room and announces that new news has come from the church, and it turns out that Catherine is a holy virgin. Samuel remarks with a grin that he has found the one that suits him. Catherine hardly comes to her senses, looks around and realizes that she is in the king's chambers. These chambers are one of the main initial locations of the game, but the girl does not understand how she got here. The Duchess quickly gets up, thinking that she must get out of here as quickly as possible. Catherine goes to the door, pulls it, and realizes with despair that it is locked. Suddenly, the door opens and Samuel comes in, grabs the Duchess by the hand and says they need to run. The prince hugs the girl to himself, says that he loves her, offers to marry him and go to his kingdom. Catherine snatches her hand away and asks the prince to watch his words. She doesn't suit him at all. Samuel kisses the girl and declares that if it is so important for her to marry the king, then he is ready to become her secret lover. The Duchess pushes the young man away and shouts that he is simply crazy. They are in the palace, and he should be afraid of the king. The prince declares that he is ready to endure anything, and again passionately kisses the girl on the lips. Samuel unzips Catherine's dress, kisses her shoulder, and declares that he wants to win her love. The Duchess pushes the prince away and tells him to come to his senses because he is not acting as intended. Having calmed down, the girl says that Prince Samuel is a well-mannered, honest, and cultured young man. The young man again grabs Catherine and declares that she overestimated him. He is just a scoundrel who wants to drag her into the abyss of his desires. The Duchess touches some object with her hand, and suddenly a secret door opens in the wall. The girl looks at the passage in amazement, not understanding where it came from. She definitely did not create it, which means this is another bug. The prince looks at the secret passage in surprise and notices that the queen was not as simple as everyone thought. Going down the stairs, Ekaterina reflects that she is already accustomed to the fact that the plot is constantly changing. But now the locations live their own lives. Looking at the prince, the Duchess reflects that, among other things, the characters act on their own, and all this can lead to the logic of the game being broken. Suddenly, the girl steps on something and a hole appears in the floor. The prince managed to grab her at the last moment and save her from falling. Samuel says that there are many mechanisms here, so Catherine should hold on to him tightly. If she gets hurt, it will hurt him a lot. Approaching a dead end, the Duchess feels the wall, looking for the mechanism that will open the door. Having found a way out, Catherine declares with a grin that there is no secret entrance without an exit. The couple opens the door, and with surprise, the young people realize that they are in the office of the Holy Father. The Duchess understands that there was something between the priest and the queen, and does not understand why he did not help her. And even their sister was condemned for dark forces, and not for betraying the king. Samuel looks around with interest and suddenly tells Catherine that he has found some kind of ring. The Duchess examines the find and notices that there are traces of dried blood on the ring. In the room next to the office, the voice of the Holy Father is heard, who orders that the escaped Alice and Lucifer be put on the wanted list. Entering the office, the priest looks around suspiciously and notices a fallen book on the shelf. In the royal chambers, Catherine can hardly catch her breath from running fast and tries to say something about the ring. The prince covers the girl's mouth and says in a whisper that he heard the sound of a closet being pulled aside and someone's strange footsteps. Samuel notices that perhaps their pursuer is now standing on the other side of the wall and listening carefully. The young man remembers how the servant told him that not only the king was interested in Catherine, but also the Holy Father. The prince says that it will be difficult to get the priest to confess his affair with the queen, and asks what he must hear to give himself away. Samuel firmly states that the priest must understand that something has been taken from him and kisses the Duchess passionately. The king orders the servant to find Alice faster than the Holy Father. The guy knows about the crime, and perhaps they can win something in this situation. Suddenly, the king hears the voice of Catherine, who shouts that she is not a prop for a crime. Entering the chambers, the ruler asks what props his bride was talking about. Understanding the girl's words in his own way, the king angrily declares that she allows herself to insult the king behind his back. The Duchess steals a glance at the sofa, making sure that Samuel is not visible, and mutters something inaudibly. The king grabs the girl by the throat and declares that it is an honor for her to become his wife, and not to be sold to a rich aristocrat, so she has no right to contradict him. Throwing Catherine onto the bed, the king declares that he needs to teach her a lesson so that she understands everything. Undressing, the man notices that their wedding is soon, so he may well make the girl his. Samuel and the Holy Father, present at the scene, freeze in amazement. Ekaterina is simply in shock. She did not at all plan to conduct an almost live broadcast of the sex scene. The Duchess tries to explain something to the king, but he does not listen to her and presses a demanding kiss on her lips. The girl slaps the ruler in the face with all her might and orders him to take his hands off her. The king's face changes with anger and asks how the girl dared to contradict him. The Duchess declares that she will not contradict her master, but wants to cancel their wedding. Suddenly, Catherine receives a notification that an important character is in mortal danger, which will lead to the destruction of the game world. Alice looks at the raw heart with disgust and declares that he will never eat it. Lucifer notices that if the guy dies, then it will be even better for him. Catherine will have one less suitor. The knight lashes out at his heart, convinced that he must live to protect her. The demon remarks with a grin that light and darkness are eternal enemies, but now it is obvious that even the young man is not as pure as he seemed. Alice bites into the raw heart, saying that the darkness can help him, but the light killed his entire family. Noticing what the knight is doing, Lucifer says in shock that one bite of the beast's heart is enough for the dark magic to work. Alice looks at the devil in disbelief and asks if this is not a human heart. Lucifer calmly replies that he doesn't kill people just like that, and you shouldn't think that demons do only evil. Catherine resolutely says that she does not want to get married, but the king must be wary of rumors that the Holy Virgin is being held against her will. The Duchess, in despair, thinks that she needs to find Alice and Lucifer as quickly as possible and find out what happened to them. The king asks if Catherine thought that the people believe the Holy Father like crazy, and the one who threatens to take away power and influence from them will not last long. Listening attentively, the priest thinks with a grin that the king is well aware of his motives. Turning away, the The ruler notices that the girl must beg him not to leave him, because if she falls into the hands of the Holy Father, death will seem like a good outcome to her. When the king has left, Samuel runs up to his lady and asks if she is all right. Catherine thoughtfully asks the prince to give her the ring found in the priest's office. Looking at the find, the Duchess realizes that she was not mistaken. She saw such a ring on the king's hand. Suddenly, Catherine realizes that the king is well aware of the secret passage. The girl cannot understand what is the true reason for the queen's sentence. The sister clearly didn't want to die, so why didn't she ask for help, but simply resigned herself? The Duchess understands that if she finds out this secret, she will be able to fix the bug, return the plot to its course, and complete the game to the end. But before dealing with the mystery, the girl needs to deal with more important things. Swinging open the door to the balcony, Catherine realizes that she needs to escape and save the main male characters. Samuel notices that they are on the 3rd floor, and jumping down is an absolutely bad idea. The prince says smugly that, judging by the expression on the girl's face, she definitely won't be able to cope alone. Catherine admits that she needs to escape from here as soon as possible and asks if Samuel will help her. The prince assures that the girl can count on him, but in return he wants a kiss. The Duchess remembers what she promised Lucifer, but if she hesitates, his and Alice's condition may worsen. Realizing that some promises can be neglected, Catherine quickly approaches the prince and kisses him on the lips. The young man says that the Duchess rejected him, but now he has learned how tender his kiss is. Samuel sincerely thanks the girl for not rejecting him this time. Catherine realizes with surprise that she is touched by the young man's words and how embarrassed he was by her kiss. One of the guards tells the other that the king has ordered the area to be patrolled as carefully as possible. Samuel jumps off the balcony with Catherine in his arms and asks if she is sure that she will go on without him. Looking after the departing prince, the Duchess wonders if he guessed that she was not from this world. Lucifer watches Alice's torment and notices that the darkness is eating away at the young man, and the pain will only intensify in the future. The knight replies that the demon shared the remnants of its power with him, so he will not give up and will definitely cope. The devil thinks with doubt that he wanted to use these powers to find Catherine, but had to spend them on this weakling. Suddenly, the door swings open and the Duchess appears on the threshold. Lucifer rushes towards her with a joyful cry. The girl asks if everything is okay and explains that she found the guys thanks to the spell Lucifer used to bind them. The devil squeezes Catherine in his arms and tells her that he missed her very much. The Duchess admits that she was also bored. She understands that the demon is not injured, which means the message came about Alice. Running up to the knight, the girl realizes that his condition leaves much to be desired. Lucifer declares that everything is fine with the young man. He used a spell that will restore his strength, and soon he will be more alive than anyone else alive. The Duchess does not understand why the indicator of destruction of the game world does not change. Since everything is fine with the guys, is it really impossible to change it? Suddenly, the girl hears loud voices of people from the church who are tugging at the locked door. Alice, with the last of his strength, asks Lucifer to protect Catherine, to which the devil snaps that he himself knows what to do. The Duchess does not want to leave without Alice, but the young man assures that the most important thing now is to save her. The girl clutches her head in despair, because the most important thing for the game is to save them both. The Knights of Light see Alice and state that it appears he is indeed a traitor. The young man suggests not to waste time chatting since he has already been captured. One of the knights declares that the traitor must be taken to the Holy Father, and he will decide what to do with him next. Suddenly, one of the pursuers stumbles upon Lucifer and Catherine and shouts that 2 more are hiding here. Alice understands that she can't let Catherine be captured, so she starts screaming and struggling. The captain severely wounds the knight and declares that he dare not resist after his betrayal. The girl immediately receives a notification that an important character is in mortal danger. The Duchess begs the demon to help the young man, but Alice begs him to take his mistress away from here. Lucifer opens a portal, and having promised Catherine that nothing will happen to Alice, jumps into it with a girl in his arms. Watching the jump, the young man realizes with relief that his beloved managed to escape. Once at the other end of the city, the Duchess shakes the demon and asks if Alice is sure he will not die. The demon looks closely at the girl and notices that she is very worried about the young man, whether she loves him. Suddenly, Lucifer begins to behave strangely and whispers that his strength is running out. The girl doesn't have time to say a word, and Lucifer falls to the floor unconscious. The girl thinks that a new notification has not arrived, which means that everything will be fine with the devil. There's a knock on the door, and the Duchess, tightly wrapped in a blanket, opens the door to the royal guards. The girl explains that she has bad legs, she walks very poorly, and therefore did not open the door for a long time. The guard presents the Duchess with a portrait of her and Lucifer and asks if she has seen these people. The girl shakes her head negatively. The knight doubts and demands Catherine to look him in the eye. The girl says that she is too scary and is afraid to scare him, but the guard insists. Suddenly, a handsome young man appears and tells the captain that this is his fiancée, so there is no need to interrogate her. The man explains that the girl had an accident, so she doesn't want to show her face to anyone. Hugging the Duchess, the young man declares that love should not disappear with a change in a person's appearance. Catherine looks in amazement at the man saving her and does not understand at all who is in front of her. The captain respectfully says that the Duke of Rothschild is probably proud of such a son, and the young duke must have arrived for his sister's wedding. The man nods affirmatively and declares that he really wants to attend his younger sister's wedding. Catherine does not understand at all who this handsome man is. According to the plot, Catherine did not have any brother. The Duchess shouts that she is hearing about her brother for the first time, asks who he is and where he is taking her. The man calmly says that he is Bevis, the girl's older brother, and she should have heard this from the guard. The Duchess reflects that now in the game characters appear out of nowhere, realizing that, first of all, we need to think about the safety of the main male characters. The girl turns around and declares that she is leaving. Bevis calmly says that after the discovery of Alice, guards are prowling in the area, whether the sister is sure that she wants to return there. The man states that it seems like there was someone else with the girl, and she must be hiding that same demon. Catherine turns around sharply and angrily asks what the young man is up to. Noticing the guards, Bevis presses his sister against the wall, thereby causing her to cry out in anger. A guard passing by notices that Mr. Bevis really misses his bride, since he does not let her out of his arms. The man stares at the girl and asks if she really wants to know what he's up to. Bevis grabs his sister by the throat and calmly asks who she is and what she did with the real Catherine. The Duchess does not understand what is happening, but she knows that the characters cannot be allowed to learn about the real world. They must live only according to the laws of the game world. Bevis states that the real Catherine was not so insecure and once again asks what the girl did to her. Noticing another guard, the man turns the corner of the house and pulls the girl along with him. Having brought the girl to a house, Bevis says that this is his secret hideout, which he built among the houses of ordinary townspeople. The brother declares that the Duchess will not leave here until she tells where the real Catherine is. The sister screams in rage that if the brother wants to know the answer, then just look at her. The girl assures that she is the real Catherine, and he just wants to lock her here. Bevis grabs her sister by the hand and says that Catherine is a pure, innocent, and sweet girl, and in front of him is a dirty, greedy hypocrite who took her place. The man loudly slams the door behind him, and Catherine wonders in bewilderment how he knew everything. The Duchess recalls that the king and princess, who knew Catherine so well, did not guess anything. But Bevis understood everything from the first meeting. Now the plot is developing on its own. The king and Catherine are together not only because of love. Samuel's true appearance is also not what was planned. Obviously, the bug somehow changed the relationship between the characters and made the game look normal. Because of a bug, the characters came to some strange harmony, and you don't need to think about why this happened, but you need to fix this bug. If everything is really so, then perhaps Bevis, who appeared without the intervention of the developers, is the only character who guessed about everything. The Duchess decides to shake everything he knows out of Bevis, and, in her current situation, remains to ask the prince for help to escape. Helping the Duchess get out, he notes that he didn't expect her to turn to him again so quickly. Ekaterina thinks that if it weren't for her current situation, she would never have approached a guy who was kissing her without permission. The lady stumbles. The prince deftly catches her and says that she is looking at him strangely. She must have remembered their hot kiss. The girl breaks away from Samuel's embrace and states that Bavis could return at any moment, so they need to leave. Catherine cryptically asks if Prince Samuel would like to play hide and seek with her against the guards in one of the secret areas. Walking openly around the city, the prince is puzzled, and Catherine notices that the more secretive you behave, the more suspicion you arouse. The girl declares with a smile that it is unlikely that anyone will think that locked Catherine suddenly went out for a walk in the middle of the street. The royal guards come towards the couple and greet Prince Samuel. Suddenly, one of the knights grabs the Duchess by the hand and tells her to raise her face and look into his eyes. The prince hugs Catherine and angrily says that the girl is dear to him, and is this really how guests are treated in their kingdom? Samuel coldly remarks that the captain is treating his guest like a criminal. The prince orders him to be taken to the king and says that then he will see how the ruler values friendship between states. The captain respectfully asks for forgiveness and orders the others not to stop the guest if they see her on the street again. Catherine is triumphant. Everything is going very well, and now she can calmly go on her search alone. The Duchess turns to Samuel and declares that she will no longer torture him. He can go about his business. The prince stops the girl and remarks that he deserves a reward for his efforts. Catherine doesn't have time to say a word when Samuel kisses her passionately once again. The Duchess looks at the prince and notices that his kisses make her heart beat faster. Meanwhile, Lucifer gradually comes to his senses and calls for his Catherine. The girl runs into the house and happily notices that the demon has finally woken up. Catherine throws out the blankets and says that it is very dangerous here, and Lucifer needs to shrink as quickly as possible. The devil raises his head and notices with amazement that the girl smells like another demon. Approaching Catherine's lips, Lucifer states that the smell is especially strong in this place. The demon declares that the girl needs to be cleansed of him and kisses her tenderly on the lips. The Duchess is surprised to feel that the kiss seems to capture her entirely. The girl cannot tear herself away from Lucifer and feels that she belongs to him entirely. The door opens and Samuel looks in surprise at the kissing couple. The prince calmly asks if the girl really left him for a man from whom nothing but dark energy emanates. The Duchess looks at Samuel in surprise and says that everything is not at all what he might have thought. Lucifer says with rage that it was the prince who left his energy on Catherine, and the girl does not understand whether Samuel is not a man. The devil rushes at the prince with his fists and shouts that the Duchess belongs to him. The girl thinks that something doesn't add up here. Why is the prince wielding dark magic? Lucifer grabs Samuel by the throat and declares that even though they are both demons, the guy is no match for him, and he can easily turn him into a servant. The Duchess rushes towards the men and asks them to stop, but suddenly a voice is heard from the door, declaring that they should not disturb them. Bavis says with a laugh that this is the first time he has seen two demons fight over a woman. The brother grabs the girl, enveloping her in magic and declaring that demons will never be with the Holy Maiden. Both demons immediately stop fighting and are ready to rush at the man, threatening Catherine. The Duchess breaks free from her brother's arms and declares that she needs to figure everything out first, and then he can do whatever he wants with her. Catherine approaches the prince and asks if he is a demon. The guy invites the girl to see this by his example. The Duchess speculates that perhaps because the prince is a demon, he appeared in a completely different way than was intended in the game. Turning to Beavis, Catherine asks if he is a student of the Holy Father, because they are the ones who know how to use light magic. The brother responds with surprise that, obviously, the girl forgot that their family does not believe in the god of light. The man tells the astonished sister that the priest simply made up this god. Otherwise, Bevis simply would not be able to use magic. The brother quickly takes the girl away. Lucifer gives chase and demands to let her go immediately. Bavis attacks the demon with a powerful beam of light and states that the demon is powerless to stop him. The brother summons a magical portal and is carried away with Catherine in an unknown direction. Lucifer lies on the ground and looks with despair as his beloved disappears. Turning to Samuel, the devil angrily asks why he is allowing them to leave. The prince says that Lucifer himself heard everything. It is not at all a fact that the god of light exists in their world. Lucifer, shocked, says that this may mean that they are not demons at all. A new law has appeared at the Catherine Zoo, and the puppy was the first to accept this challenge. The kitten and puppy were constantly squabbling over who would own a Katerina. Then a third pet, a sly fox, appeared at the zoo. The kitten and puppy noticed that the fox was breaking the rules and decided to team up, causing a huge mess. And at this time, an insidious snake appeared and simply kidnapped Catherine. Since then, the trio's enmity has strangely ceased, and they have united against a new enemy. Her father lashes out at Catherine, saying she had the nerve to return, but Bevis comes to her defense, saying she's already suffered enough. Duke Bela shouts in anger that after his daughter's escape, the king's anger fell on the Rothschild family, and on top of everything else, the traitor knight was also captured. The girl thinks that since Alice was captured and is going to be interrogated, it means he is definitely alive. Bevis calmly says that he has already explained everything to the king, and now they just need to work closely with him, and then the Holy Father will not be afraid of them. The brother declares that the king has pardoned their family and ordered him to personally watch over his sister, who will live in the family castle until the wedding day. The father puts his hands on his son's shoulders and says that he is immensely glad that they have him. Duke Bela confidently declares that making the young man a member of their family was the most correct decision in life. Catherine listens to the conversation with surprise. It turns out that Bevis is not his own, but the adopted son of the Rothschild family. Bevis unties the girl's hand and she asks why he brought her back. The man states that, unlike the demons who have never seen the real light, he can borrow the king's power and legally lock the girl in the castle. Bevis declares that as long as Catherine is in his hands, he will succeed, and he will be able to get rid of all the guys who are trying to get to her. The Duchess asks with interest what her brother will do if it's not the guys who are trying to get to her, but she's coming to them. Grabbing the girl in his arms, Bevis furiously declares that her entire body belongs to him. Others are not allowed to touch her. Catherine arrogantly declares that Bevis is just an older brother and has no right to dictate to her. The girl notices that as soon as the guy thinks that this is not the real Catherine in front of him, he immediately tries to take control of her. Having brought Bevis, Catherine asks what her father will say if he finds out that his brother has dirty thoughts about his sister. Seeing that the guy can barely restrain himself, the girl continues to say that because of such strong efforts, her brother lacks power. Bevis grabs the doorframe with his hand, and the Duchess continues that as soon as the king finds out which brother-in-law he will get, Bevis will instantly lose his trust. Taking the guy by the chin, the girl says that she and Catherine clearly had a non-brotherly relationship, and maybe Bevis even used her as a tool to strengthen his position. Bevis pulls himself together and notices that the girl is asking too many questions about what exactly she wants to know. The girl asks why Catherine decided to marry her older sister's husband. Bevis suddenly grabs Catherine by the neck and declares that this does not concern her. The guy warns the girl to stay away from other men because he belongs to him. Bevis leaves, and the Duchess demands to tell her the whole truth. Suddenly, someone covers Catherine's mouth with her hand, and she falls silent in fear. Turning around, the girl sees Lucifer and asks in amazement how he was able to get into the chambers. Catherine says that a seal was placed on the door, and then notices with fear that the demon is wounded. Lucifer doesn't hear the girl's questions, and angrily says that Bevis told no one to touch her. The demon asks who he is to forbid something, and passionately kisses the Duchess. Catherine jumps to the side, and Lucifer notices that the girl was right about something. The demon knocks the Duchess onto the bed and declares that if he eats her heart, he will get rid of all suffering. Unbuttoning his shirt, the devil admits that the girl's charms have a strong effect on him, and he wants to drink her to the last drop. Kissing Catherine's hand, Lucifer gently tells her that she has absolutely nothing to worry about. Bevis sits down at the bar and wearily asks for a glass of wine. Hearing screams on the street, the Duke jumps out and asks what's the matter, and the man explains that the girl pushed his old grandmother. Those around her say that the girl is clearly not local. She was passing by the old woman. She must have pushed her. The girl fearfully explains that she passed by her grandmother. She fell, and the girl extended her hand to help her get up. The stranger says with tears that she just wanted to help the old woman, but obviously it was a mistake. The girl asks for forgiveness, and the image of his beloved Catherine suddenly appears before Bevis's eyes. The guy looks at the stranger in amazement, not believing his eyes. Bevis declares that he has already heard about this scheme and orders the scammers to get out of his sight while he is good. Suddenly, the stranger feels the dress and says with horror that her money is missing. The Duke turns sharply and orders the scammers to immediately return the stolen goods if they do not want to end up in prison. As they leave, the scammers notice that lately it has become increasingly difficult to deceive people, especially non-locals. Looking after the retreating couple, Bevis notices that the woman truly has a black heart. The girl sincerely thanks the Duke for saving her money. He replies that it is his duty and wonders who the stranger is looking for. The girl says that she is looking for her brother named Lucifer and asks if the master knows him. Bevis looks at the girl in amazement. He did not expect such a turn. Half-naked Lucifer leans over Catherine, but at the very last moment the girl asks him to stop.